Welcome to tonight's License Subcommittee meeting. My name is Councillor Mercy Ume, and I'll be chairing tonight's meeting. The meeting is being broadcast live on Council's YouTube channel. If I lose connection, Councillor Shavede will take over from me. I would like to remind all participants few housekeeping points. Please keep your microphone muted unless you are speaking. Please keep your camera turned on when you speak at the hearing. Please note that the chat function has been disabled. If parties wish to add additional information other than their allocated time to speak, they must use hand function so that they are not missed. I would like to remind all members to keep their questions and comments brief to the point. I now go to item 1 on our agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence. No apologies for absence has been received. Item 2, declaration of interest. Do members have any declaration of interest?
No, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Item 3, chicken cottage. I would like to ask everyone participating to introduce yourselves as I call on you. We should have with us Farah Hadim Udin, the applicant.
He's absent, but I'm present on his behalf. My name is Rahim, and I'm the franchise business manager.
I'm sorry you are not listed, so you will not be speaking tonight.
I'll be speaking on behalf of the applicant. My name is Thomas Corcoran.
Okay, thank you. We have Adrian.
Present, thank you, Chair.
Okay, we have PC Chris.
Yes, good evening, Chair. Good evening, everybody. I'm present.
Thank you. We have Ian Inman. Ian.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, everybody. I'm present, Ian Inman from the Noise and Nuisance team.
Okay, thank you. We have Lorna.
Present, Chair.
Okay, we have Gerta.
Present, Chair. I'm the solicitor representing the council. Thank you.
Thank you. We have objecting, and those people objecting is Charlotte here. Charlotte?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, and she's representing Sarah, Selena, Sarah and Selena, isn't it, Charlotte?
That's correct. I'm representing two resident associations. Yes.
Thank you. We have John Scolding here, who is representing Amanda, Elena, and Baha.
Yes, I'm present. I thought I was also representing Charlie McTaggart, but I may be wrong about that.
No, you're correct on that. So, yeah.
Okay.
Thank
you.
you.
Because I have Graham to be representing him, but it's fine. Okay, so Graham, are you here?
I am, Chair.
Okay, we have Andy Clark.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
We have Daisy.
Present.
Okay, we have Miranda. Simon.
Simon's not on the call, Chair, but Miranda is.
Okay. Okay, we have the ward councillor, which is Councillor Ben Coleman. Okay, before we begin, I can confirm that in addition to the main agenda, supplementary agenda, containing additional information was published and circulated to all parties on the 6th of February, 2024. Before we decide the application today, please, may I quickly explain the procedure the committee will follow. We will hear from the following. The licensing officer will introduce the application. The three responsible authorities in objection, the objectors, the ward councillor, finally, the applicant. Usually, each party will address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes. Following the presentation by all parties, the committee may ask questions of any party for other person present at the hearing. Except committee members, no party has the right to ask questions to any other party at any time during the hearing. Following the presentation and questioning, each party will be allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to sum up their case or representation. The committee will then retire for deliberation. Upon its return, I will announce committee's decision. Presenting officer, can I ask the license officer Lorna to introduce the application, please.
Yes, Chair. On the 22nd of September 2023, Thomas Corcoran of Chicken Cottage Limited submitted an application on behalf of Fahim Udin, the applicant, to vary the premises licence in respect of the premises known as Chicken Cottage, 82 North End Road, London, W149ES. The premises currently benefits from a premises licence, and the current licence permits the following licensable activity: the provision of late night refreshment, both indoors and outdoors, Sunday to Thursday from 2300 hours till 1 a.m, Friday and Saturday 2300 hours till 2 a.m, and the opening hours of the premises is Sunday to Thursday 10:30 a.m. till 1 a.m, Friday and Saturday 10:30 a.m. to 2 a.m. During this full variation, the applicant has applied to vary the hours for late night refreshment and add non-standard timings. The applicant has also seeks to remove 34 conditions from the existing licence as they no longer feel they are relevant, and also it seeks to update the premises plans attached to the licence. The amendments to the licensable activities to vary is the provision of late night refreshments indoors and outdoors Sunday to Thursday from 2300 hours to 3 a.m. and Fridays and Saturday 2300 hours to 4 a.m. The non-standard timings from the end of permitted hours on New Year's Eve to 5 a.m. on New Year's Day, and propose to vary the hours with the additional information of the restaurant to serve food from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m. for daily dining, and from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. takeouts only Sundays to Thursday, and from 1 a.m. till 4 a.m. takeouts only daily on Fridays and Saturdays. The proposed variation to the opening hours of the premises is Sundays to Thursdays from 10 a.m. till 3 a.m. and Fridays and Saturdays till 10 a.m. till 4 a.m. The applicant has proposed additional steps in their operating schedule to promote the 4 licensing objectives if the variation is granted. During the consultation period, the licensing section received 18 representations in total objecting to the variation application. Of these representations, 1 was received from the licensing authority, 1 from the police licensing team, and 1 from the noise and nuisance team, who are all 3 responsible authorities objecting to the grant of this licence variation application. The licensing section also received 1 representation from Councillor Ben Coleman, 1 on behalf of the Barclay Road Conservation Area Neighbourhood Watch, 1 on behalf of the Seagrave Road Residents Association, and 12 representations from local residents, all objecting to the licence application being granted. There has been some enforcement history at the premises noted on the 9th of May 2023 and the 26th of October 2023, which is detailed in the report. And further to the main agenda, there has been a supplementary agenda item A, which has been circulated to all parties on the 6th of February 2024, which included confirmation of the police's position on their representation and additional evidence from objectors in support of their application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Alona. I think I saw Andy putting his hands up. I wonder why. Andy?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify the amount of time available to speak in indicating that I would be attending this meeting. I wrote just to ask that question, and I got a reply from Lorna McKenna saying it would be 5 minutes to speak and then 3 minutes at the end to sum up.
That's
Is
correct.
that changed? Okay, thank you.
It hasn't changed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
I just misheard you.
Okay, thank you. We have responsible authorities so objecting. So can I have Adrian to speak, please? 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. So just to give you some background of this case, the licensing authority has made a representation to this application, I suppose solely on the basis of past adverse enforcement history at the premises. As you will note from the comments in my representation, and just to summarise the chronology of the case, we first engaged with the applicant in April 2023, as we had received a number of complaints that the business was operating out of hours. This information was provided by the council's law enforcement team after they witnessed the premises remaining open on 3 occasions in late April 2023. At this stage, we made the applicant aware that they must adhere to the terms of their licence, the terms and conditions of their licence. And we also made them aware that it would be a criminal offence if they continue to offer licensable activities without the correct authorisation in place. This information was then formally put to the licence holder in writing on the 25th of April 2023. And at the time, we also explained the responsibilities of a licence holder as we saw them in terms of staff training. And we also explained that immediate steps must be taken to amend any delivery websites that they were using to reflect the correct authorised trading hours. Disappointingly, the day after this advice, on the 26th of April 2023, the law enforcement team again witnessed the premises trading at 2:34 a.m. in the morning. A verbal warning was then given to Mr. Udin, the licence holder at the time, after he was transferred onto the licence. And the verbal warning was given on the 9th of May, and it outlined the previous visits by the LEP team, which I referred to. And it also explained again that carrying out unauthorised licensing activities was a criminal offence, and that he would need to make sure that that didn't happen in future. After this advice, the business then did pass a test purchase, which took place on the 14th of May at 2:30 a.m, which was arranged by the licensing team. As you will note from my representation, there's then a gap in any enforcement history until October 2023. And that's when noise officers witnessed the premises remaining open on the 5th of October, the 12th of October, and the 21st of October later on, and past their licensable times. I think it's key to say that although these visits were not substantially past the hours permitted on the licence, and I think maybe there were just a few minutes on some occasions, they still show the premises carrying out licensable activities and not preparing to close. You would normally expect if a premises is going to close at a certain time, then 20 minutes or even half an hour before, they'd be getting ready to close, and they wouldn't still be serving customers a few minutes after the time that they're licensed for. With this in mind, a formal written warning letter was issued to the licence holder on the 26th of October 2023. The letter included a history of interactions and correspondence between the licensing authority and Mr. Udin prior to the offence, and it also included recent observations from the noise team on the 5th of October. As you will be aware from the timeline that I've just summarised, officers from the licensing team and other officers from responsible authorities such as the noise team and police officers as well have spent a considerable amount of time dealing with this case. We've offered a huge amount of advice and guidance over the past 9 months. And despite this, disappointingly, we've still witnessed unlicensed activities on a number of occasions. We currently feel that any trust between the licensing authority and the applicant has deteriorated and is at a stage where it's really broken down now. And whilst the test purchase, which took place on the 14th of May, did show that the premises was compliant on that occasion, we still have concerns that there is a disregard for licensing legislation as a whole and any advice offered by the council. And we would therefore request that this, respectfully request that this variation application is refused to try and minimise any future chances of non-compliance at the premises. I don't have any other comments at this stage, Chair, unless you've got any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Adrian. I don't at this stage. Can we have our PC Chris to speak, please? 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I do apologise if I start coughing a lot. I'm just recovering from a couple of cracked ribs. So I just thought I'd let you all...
I do understand. I have the same myself, please.
Thank you. So good evening, Chair. Good evening, councillors. The Metropolitan Police object to this licence application as it is believed that granting of this licence will undermine the licensing objectives, specifically the prevention of crime and disorder and also the prevention of public nuisance. Chicken Cottage itself is located on North End Road. Although North End Road is very busy during the day with traffic and pedestrians, during the later part of the day and specifically the early hours in the morning, this area is effectively just a residential area. The area of North End Road as well, unfortunately, suffers with a higher crime rate and more antisocial behaviour than most of the parts of Hammersmith and Fulham. Now, from a police perspective, it is well evidenced that late night takeaways such as Chicken Cottage do attract some people that are drunk or they're acting in an antisocial manner. And this behaviour can sometimes lead to incidents of disorder taking place. It's my experience that the later that a premises is permitted to remain open, the more likely it is that incidents may potentially occur. A clear example of this was on Sunday the 12th of March of last year. Chicken Cottage, they should have closed at 2 o'clock. However, the premises remained open without authority to do so and at 3:30 in the morning, a violent assault took place inside. To give you the details of this assault, it involved 3 people fighting. Inside the premises, as an argument had actually taken place over some chicken. 2 customers were repeatedly punched, and 1 customer was actually kicked in the head by the suspect. So both the police and also the ambulance service were called to the premises to deal with this incident. It just sort of highlights the type of violent incident that can occur in these sort of premises. I am absolutely of the opinion that if an extension to this licence is granted, then the potential for such incidents of crime and disorder, such as the one that I've just described, will significantly increase. I've also liaised with the local Safe and Neighbourhood team, and they also have expressed their concerns with this application being granted. There are issues on the North End Road sort of corridor with groups of people, sometimes youths, congregating in the early hours, and they are concerned that if this premise is to open later, these people may congregate outside or even inside the premises and cause antisocial behaviour or general nuisance. And this, of course, would have an effect on local residents. Now, there are a few premises in Hammersmith and Fulham that do actually have a licence in Chicken Cottage. We do have a couple of 24-hour licences that can sell hot food. However, these are situated in the central hubs of, or the immediate vicinity of Hammersmith Broadway, Shepherd's Bush Green. These aren't residential areas. And also these premises licenses are conditioned accordingly to deal with those times. A classic example would be that they have full-time security, those sort of things in place. I'm of the opinion that the current license that Chicken Cottage has got is extremely generous. And just so you're aware, if Chicken Cottage were to apply for the same license that they've already got, bear in mind the location, also the effect it would have to the residents, the police would actually object to it. So to summarise, there has been a violent incident at the premises when it's been open past 2 o'clock. The area is a residential area, specifically in the early hours. Both the police licensing team and also police officers from the local Safe and Neighbourhood team strongly believe that any increase to the current operating hours will result in an increase in disorder and also antisocial behaviour. And both of these will absolutely have a detrimental effect on the quality of lives of the local residents. So the Metropolitan Police therefore respectfully request that the committee do not grant this application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, VC. Please, can I have Ian to speak? The noise and nuisance. 5 minutes, please.
Evening, Chair. Sorry, I'm just having trouble. Oh, it's okay. Hopefully my video is now working.
It's working.
Okay, great stuff. Sorry, thank you very much for that. As you are aware, we've made a written representation as a responsible authority against the application. This follows, obviously, an initial meeting back in July of last year when ourselves and the Metropolitan Police met with the business operator, Mr. Udin. This was regarding requests to discuss, obviously, potentially extending the hours. We gave a large amount of advice and guidance with regards to what he should or should not apply for and what steps he would have to take to obviously meet such a request. We did actually advise at the time that we thought it would be unlikely that if he did apply, that such an application would be granted. Following that initial meeting in July, the Noise and Nuisance team carried out a number of observations of the premises, as you will probably be aware from the written representation and also the photo information pack. We carried out a test purchase on the 5th of October, which was, although technically a few seconds before the time of closure, the premises was monitored and was observed to carry on trading past the hour. A further test purchase was carried out on the 12th of October, and again, the test purchase was successful, and the staff were seen to continue serving people past the hour of the closing. On the 21st of October, we carried out just general observations of the premises. And although this was during their licensable hours, we watched a number of motorcycle riders from your typical Deliveroo, Uber Eats companies gathering, arriving, departing, bouncing up and down on the curbs with their bikes, riding on the bikes, riding on the pavement. Almost pandemonium outside there. There was no control by any or no control or observations by any of the staff members of the premises. So in addition to if effectively creating noise and nuisance, it would be dangerous for pedestrians in that area. As I've said, we are satisfied that there is no real proper control and management of the premises. Staff do not really seem to take notice of anyone that speaks to them. In as far as the noise impact is concerned, for us, it's not just necessarily the issue of when the premises is open and the trading hours. We have to factor in other things such as, say, vehicle noise from vehicles coming and going from the premises. We also have to consider the noise of customers coming and going and being on the pavement past or sort of late night, early hours of the morning. We do also have to factor in the operation of the business and say mechanical extraction systems for the commercial kitchen extract, which the premises has. Obviously, that in itself can be very noisy, and although we have not actually inspected the system, we have been advised that the system is quite old. So if the premises license was granted the extension, this would allow the system to be in operation until very, very much later in early hours of the morning, which would the likelihood is it will result in sleep disturbance to nearby residential properties. We have, as I've said, engaged with Mr. Udin, and we've given advice on various aspects of the application and possible ways he might consider improving the situation. But obviously we can only comment on the fact of what we witnessed, what we've seen, which are effectively failed test purchases, very poor practice and management of the premises, and potential noise nuisance from the operation of the premises. Therefore, we have requested a refusal of the application in its entirety, and that's really all I think I need to say at this moment in time.
Thank you. Wow, thank you, Ian. Can I now have the other parties like Charlotte? We are representing Sarah and Selena. So I'm giving you 15 minutes. Is that okay, Charlotte?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you very much. Yes, I am representing my road, which is Barclay Road, Conservation Area Neighborhood Watch. We're over 250 residents in about 50 houses that are partially all houses, and some of them are houses with 2 or 3 flats in them. I'm also representing Sarah Chambers, who was until recently our co-chair of the Walham Green the Walham Green Ward Panel. But more importantly, she is the head of the advisory group called the IAG, that works with the Area West, the Tri-Borough Police. Sorry, I need to start my video. Excuse me. Need to start my video. Sarah is the head of the IAG, which is an independent advisory group, IAG Independent Advisory Group, that works with the Tri-Borough Area West Police in looking at things like body cam and statistics and all sorts of things. They meet on a regular basis with the top people at the Area West Police, and kind of they're a critical advisor, they're called, from a residential community standpoint. So she has a good grip on all of that. And then I'm also representing Serena Langham, who is from Haldane Road. And Haldane Road is one of the residential roads off of North End Road. And that road has the Brunswick Club on it as well. And it has Morley's chicken place on the corner, which we had a hearing about last summer. So I'd like to now call your attention to the following. On page 9 of the agenda, there are 4 important words. 3 have 6 letters long, and 1 is 9 letters long. And I'll give you a further clue. They all start with the word E. Now, as you find your way to page 9 of the agenda, these 4 words are also in the Council's Statement of Licensing Policy on page 22. The 4 words, which some of you have now perhaps found, lifting through things, are E for engage, E for explain, E for encourage, and E for enforce. These words describe the proactive legal process taken by the council to work with premises license holders to resolve significant problems at a premises. Problems that are ongoing, problems that are mounting, that are of great concern, and they are usually becoming worse than better. Problems that are leading to offenses under the Licensing Act 2003. From the agenda pack before us today, we see that the police have engaged, they've explained, and they've encouraged the applicant. We also see that the environmental officers, who we just heard from in detail, have very great concerns regarding various nuisance in and around the premises at 82 North End Road. They too, the licensing officers, have time and again engaged, explained, and encouraged the applicant to change his ways. Finally, we have seen that the licensing authority itself, which is quite rare, we know this from hearings, has taken much time, much time, to engage, explain, and encourage the applicant. We then see in the agenda pack that the premises license holder of 82 North End Road has responded to all this engagement, explaining, and encouragement by submitting an application for longer hours. In fact, until 4 a.m. The application is the purported remedy for the numerous offenses against the 2003 Licensing Act. I might also point out that on page 32 of the agenda pack, in section 12 of 18, entitled Provision of Late Night Refreshment, the applicant has chosen the option called indoors. Indoors, in licensing speak, means hot food served after 11 p.m., late night refreshment. So I think he has made a mistake. He did not choose outdoors, which means serving hot food after 11 p.m. for takeaway, and he did not choose the option called both. On page 48 of the agenda pack, the licensing authority, in its representation, correctly, I underscore that, correctly mirrors the indoors only applied for hours. This is perhaps a technicality at this point, but it perhaps more importantly shows that the premises license holder is confused about so many aspects of the 2003 Licensing Act, beginning with how to apply correctly for licensable hours for late night refreshment, in speak, hot food. This technicality aside, we conclude that the applicant sincerely believes that if he were allowed to stay open until 3 a.m. Sunday to Thursday and 4 a.m. on Friday and Saturday, all the problems brought to your attention tonight at this hearing and in the agenda pack and in the supplemental would suddenly vanish. They'd just go into thin air. After all this engagement, explanation, and encouragement, all would be well. He just needs to be open until 4 a.m. However, we have no evidence to support that supposition. The evidence we do have before us tonight from the responsible authorities on pages 46 to 65 of the agenda pack is a culmination of hundreds of hours of time spent in surveillance, meetings, writing up reports talking and meeting with the premises license holder, huge effort has been spent by the police, the environmental officers, the licensing officers to make clear to this applicant that he is staying open longer than allowed and that this is an offense. What is an offense? It is a crime. This is a crime. The applicant does not understand this in our interpretation of what has been laid before us as other interested parties, as residents. Let me take a moment to, the evidence we do, let me take a moment here to thank the police for being here tonight and making a representation. We are very, very lucky in Fulham to have, and Hammersmith, to have very active licensing police officers. And we are very grateful for their presence on the streets, in premises, and for all the work that they do behind the scenes. We are very, very happy and glad that Chris Cardwell is here tonight and supporting the rejection of this application. We as residents thank him very, very much in person now. So I move on. The premises license holder has been served official warnings as documented for the committee tonight. Council officers have explained to the premises license holder that he's breaching various conditions of his license and he's not following various environmental laws, and he is preparing and selling food when his shop should be closed. Police arriving at your premises to break up a fight and a big fight, it is really, excuse the pun, it should make the premises license holder kind of knock heads together and wonder what he needs to do next. But unfortunately, it seems to not be clear to the premises license holder that he's breaking the law, even when fights are happening in front of, inside his premises, and so on. He's broken the law many times, and unfortunately, he continues to do the same. On pages 40 and 59, 40 and 50, so 2 pages, 40 and 50 of the agenda pack, the licensing authority sets out 15, not 1 or 2, 3 or 4. Sometimes we come to hearings, there are a few offenses. 15 validated and officially witnessed incidences that have been brought to the attention of the premises license holder. We read and we heard tonight the efforts that have been made on phones, in person, meetings, whatever those are today, doesn't really matter. We all see each other on Zoom. That the authority has engaged, explained, and encouraged the applicant. Much time has been spent, huge council resource, taxpayer money has been spent with verbal warnings and written warnings we learned tonight, just now from a few of us. Residents have been discussing these incidences, which of course are most likely only the tip of the iceberg. Why are they the tip of the iceberg? Because officers can't be there every day and every night babysitting a premises license holder and telling him, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. Oh, it's time to close now. You need to do this. You need to do that. That's not what it's all about. The act is a very permissive act, and it assumes that people will follow the law, and that's how it's set up. So, the licensing authority, the police, and so they're not there every night to tell him that he's doing something against the law. With all of this very fresh evidence from 3 responsible authorities, there is the possibility of calling a review. But we are here tonight to consider a licensing application, not a licensing review. Now, I just turned to what we've included as residents in our representations, and others will speak to those. But we've also included crime statistics and maps, which support the police's concerns regarding crime and disorder in the North End Road. Unfortunately, crime, as Chris has explained, and all fights that that the police are called to attend in premises like this are very real, and they're on the increase to the point that most of North End Road is now an officially designated Met Police crime hotspot, in quotes. We've included appellate decisions acknowledging the disturbance of delivery noise at the point of delivery. We've included sleep deprivation charts and stats, info and when tubes run and stop running at West Ken. We've included high court decision citations. We've included all of this for the committee, as they need various types of solid evidence presented in writing at each hearing, upon which they base their decision. All the written evidence is needed, especially in case of an appeal. We see no evidence that would give the licensing committee any comfort in granting any extension of hours. We conclude that we must request the committee to reject this application tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. Thank you. I'm going to be asking John Scolding is going to be speaking on behalf of Amanda, Elaine, and Charles, and Baha. So he's going to get 25 minutes. Is that okay, John?
Thank you very much, Chair. And I feel part of my job has already been done, because the four previous speakers, quite frankly, in many respects, I just couldn't put it better. I completely echo Ms. Dexter's position. I've done a number of these hearings, and it's incredibly useful for residents, and it's incredibly appreciated by residents. We learn a huge amount from the responsible authorities, the licensing authority, the police authority, the environmental public protection nuisance submission, all of which inform us of the nature and extent and seriousness of what we are being asked to consider here tonight, but also the living reality of residents and the experience that residents have. So I echo the thanks for taking time of an evening, as I do to everyone from the council, and making that sacrifice. I can't say enough how much it is appreciated. I'm going to make some opening remarks. I am going to talk about the submissions, and I'm then going to turn a bit to the application, and hopefully I can knock all that on the head in the time that I've been given. The overall concern here, again picking up on what has been said, is that this is an application which is obviously outside the hours. It's not difficult to find the hours on page 8 of the pack. They're there for everyone to see. The application, I think, given the context, given the environment, makes no consideration of the issues of crime, makes little or no consideration of the issues relevant to the residential roads and the residential nature and proximity of that. The application doesn't assess the impact or the cumulative impact given the nature of the premises. The application is confusing. The indoors-outdoor issue is one issue. When I spoke to the applicant's representative, I thought at one point there was going to be a delivery-only approach to this, but it seems that it's delivery only and possibly collection from the site. It was difficult to get a grasp of what was really being presented here. I heard when I spoke to the applicant, and we've heard earlier, that there have been issues with the time of operation with the existing hours. Well, of course, it's hard to close at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning when you advertise on Google that you open until 3 a.m. And that is there now. I've got it on my screen. No attempt to not advertise that they open to the hours they're supposed to open. They also have hours which start, I believe, at 9:30 on Google, but I don't think they should be opening until 10 o'clock, though I may be wrong about that. The point is that we all know a large number of operators on the North End Road who deal with those issues. There are a number, for example, who shut down their systems 15, 20 minutes before their final time, because of course they get a large number of orders and they need to manage that in order to comply with the license and close in time. And if those other operators can do it, then quite frankly, so can this applicant as well. I don't need to reflect on the complete significance of the 3 submissions from the responsible authorities. I am going to make one reference, and that is to the police authorities submission that Mr. Cardwell made. I believe it is on page 53 of the pack, and right at the end, it says the police have real concerns that by allowing this premise to have later hours, it will then open up the floodgates for other premises and future premises to do the same. Having a number of late night takeaways in any area would significantly increase the potential for crime and disorder to take place. I only pick on that simply because it's an issue I want to come back to a little bit later. So my opening remark is I feel like we're starting in the wrong place. It's a really unfortunate history to this site over a long period of time. It's in an intensely residential area and in an area of high crime. And therefore, to see an application outside the licensing guidance has a sense of unreality about it. What is going on? Why is this taking place? Why is council time being taken up with this? It seems wholly unrealistic. Is this the right time for a review? I'm not an expert on these things. That is clearly an issue for the appropriate authority. Maybe, and I don't know if this is encompassed in a review, maybe we should have reduced hours for, say, a 12-month period so that the applicant can prove themselves. I'm only putting this forward not because I'm saying it's a possibility in tonight's process, but given the seriousness and significance of what we've heard about, should we be considering reduced hours back in line with the guidance and the statement of licensing policy? And then, frankly, there have been very good discussions, very open discussions. The attempts to correct behavior have not worked, but there we go. There's another 12 months. Maybe it can work if the seriousness is taken on board by the applicant. Turning to the submissions, I mean, a lot of this has been picked up, but I'm going to kind of canter through it relatively quickly. The issues around crime and disorder and antisocial behaviour are very well known. I will make one reference to a submission on page 95 of the pack, which states that the delivery scooters also circulating Fulham Broadway near the Samuel Lewis Trust are dangerous, noisy, pollutive. Drivers fight, argue, urinate, and are abusive, particularly to women and girls. I have video evidence and police report of a driver urinating on the estate while a man pushing a young child in a pram is passing by, and he can clearly be seen exposing himself. There is a CAD number given in the report. They go on to say, all these issues cause me disturbed sleep and make me feel unsafe. Well, that's a pretty good, I'm afraid, direct and very personal account of what residents generally experience or are experiencing currently. Moving on to the noise nuisance issue, there is, I think, a real point here about distinguishing between noise at the site. There's reference in the application to things that can be done at the site or immediately outside the premises. If we turn to supplemental agenda A, there is a very good submission. I think it starts on page 17, where we refer to the unfortunate statistics about the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham being a relatively sleep-disturbed borough. But it then on pages 18 and 19 refers to the key issues of noise at the point of delivery. So even if the bikes that were going to be engaged on this site were electric, you can't remove the noise that would take place at the point of delivery, where people stop, they might reverse into a space, there's a noise indicator that comes on with the bike, they have to open and close a container that holds the hot food. About half the houses on my road are split into 3 flats. People have to press a bell. If they don't get through, then they make a phone call. Somebody travels from the flats down to the front door. All of this generates noise after 1 o'clock in the morning. At least the people in the flats will be disturbed, if not the neighbours. The point is that it's disproportionate. One person wanting one piece of chicken can have a disproportionately large impact on immediate neighbours, immediate flatmates, immediate people next door. And of course, at night, it's exacerbated. It's very quiet at night, as it should be. And so there's no ambient background noise to drown this out. The small noises of someone making a phone call or arriving or departing are in fact heard very acutely. And that makes the problem, in one sense, worse. Why is the noise so offensive? Well, as we point out on page 18 of Supplemental A, there is a huge body of evidence, and we've heard before at these hearings about the impact on children. It's not just children. Obviously, sleep disturbance can have an impact on a large number of people. It's associated with dementia. It's associated with mental health issues and obesity. It's notably associated with forms of depression. But with children, there's a lot of evidence. We quote from the Lancet, but there's also evidence about grades being 20% lower in children who do not get consistently good sleep or have disturbed sleep, whether that's in exams or during tests throughout the year. The fundamental point is that unlike a piece of chicken, which is a really nice luxury to have at 3 o'clock in the morning, sleep is not a luxury. It's a necessity. It is something that we all need. We all, in varying amounts and quantities, and the right to the quiet enjoyment of our property and homes and the ability to sleep is fundamental. It's recognized in case law. I think we quote at page 19 the case, and there are other cases. I don't want to get bogged down in the kind of legalities of it, but it is undoubtedly a very important issue. I mentioned floodgates earlier on, and actually on page 18 of Supplemental A, we use the word creep. And I think this is a really important issue for us. Just to put this in context, between where I live and the applicant's site, there are 32 premises or retailers, operators who rely on deliveries and use deliveries. I think the split is 21 are takeaways and 11 are other forms of restaurant or delivery, grocery, or whatever it is. Now, when I spoke to the applicant's representative, Mr. Corcoran, I tried to get some real facts about what this would mean. And I was told that by opening for an extra hour, this had the potential to increase their business by 9%. And I asked, well, what does that mean? How many deliveries is that? And I was told, well, we intend to engage 3 drivers, and we expect we would do 36 deliveries in 1 hour of additional opening. And so if we think about the creep issue, if we grant these longer hours, let's just say another 9 out of my 32 operators who also use delivery services add to Chicken Cottage, and so there are 10, less than a third. So really conservative. Let's just dream that only a third go for similar hours. And let's just assume their businesses want to get some similar growth or similar benefits by trading late into the night. 36 drivers an hour, if you have 10 operators, becomes 360 drivers an hour. That's a journey from the site to the consumer, back from the consumer to the site again. 360. And the applicant's representative said, well, of course, if it goes well, we'll test it out. If it goes well, we'd like to have 4 drivers or 5 drivers. It wouldn't grow. If you had 6 drivers and you applied my numbers, 360 becomes 720. Can you imagine 720 delivery journeys being executed at 3 o'clock in the morning when you consider that virtually every road off the North End Road is 100% residential road? We already have issues with safety and the quality of drivers, but just on the noise issue alone, I think we are very concerned that would be, quite frankly, an explosion of noise and nuisance, even if we take very conservative numbers, and obviously numbers which I'm basing this on the numbers that the applicant's representative gave to me. Charlotte mentioned earlier on that there, of course, have been other cases last year. I could list a whole raft of them. I thought I would just refer to the Papa John's decision, which was taken last September. I think it was the 26th of September. And at paragraph 20 in that decision, it was said that the committee considered that in accordance with policy 11 and 14 of the Statement of Licensing Policy, the conditions were not proportionate and appropriate to deal with the objector's concerns, in this case with noise and nuisance. It was the committee's considered opinion that there will still be significant noise associated caused by drivers, even if they wait inside a venue temporarily. And that's because there was a debate about the noise at the point of delivery. And it says, and also from the delivery vehicles driving through residential streets late at night. This will impact local residents' sleep and will have a negative effect on the promotion of licensing objective of the prevention of public nuisance. I'm not going to read the Gillas case, which is another one. I'm just saying there are a number of cases, and I implore the committee, I ask the committee to act with a degree of consistency. I know you're not bound by those decisions. I know that no two cases are identical, but the themes and the issues are the same, and the impact that we're concerned about is the same. The pictures on pages 62 and 64 of the pack, there are some pictures which support a number of the submissions by residents of bad driving practice by delivery drivers. They show bikes being parked on pavements. We know that they occasionally ride on pavements. We know that they don't signal. We know that the vast majority of drivers are all L-plate drivers. And there are huge numbers of indiscretions and non-compliance with the highway code, if I can put it politely. Which my bigger concern is that because we know that this activity, this licensable activity, is so delivery dispatch driver based, and we know that they're all learners. Unlike myself as a resident, I can't get insurance. I can't have a vehicle unless I've got a full license and I take a test. Now, currently that's not required. And I'm not getting into the whys and wherefores of that. My point is a bigger point. My point is that if we're going to sanction vast numbers of dispatch riders in connection with this activity, we are doing so knowing that it is at a lower level of public safety than the standard required of your very own residents, because they can continually, day in, day out, over long periods, only ever be L-plate drivers. They're not required to take a test. And the problem with that is that's just the system. But the problem with that is it is inherently rewards non-compliance with all the principles of public safety that we would like drivers of any type of vehicle to have. And that's the reason why, when we are trying to protect members of the public, we try to have an equal playing field. Well, I'm simply saying in this scenario, there isn't an equal playing field, and I believe there are genuine safety issues. Now, mindful of the time, I also want to turn a little bit to the applicant's position. And I think right towards the end of the pack, at page 106, is a letter from Thomas Corcoran, which I'm sure he's going to talk to later on. It was sent on the 29th of December. And when I spoke to Mr. Corcoran, and I tried to get an idea of really what's driving all this. Of course, underlying all this is a basic economic opportunity. We've talked about a 9% increase in sales. We've talked about hiring 5 people, 2 are staff, 3 are drivers, the potential for that to grow. What I would say is that economic opportunity has to be balanced with the economic position of the residents in the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham. And what I mean by that is that a lot of residents are currently in an economic position through no fault of their own, through the cost of living crisis or otherwise, of having to work longer hours, having to take a second job, working very hard to keep the job that they do have. They need their sleep to recover, to enable them to do that, to be mothers and fathers and run their family, to support the elderly, to deal with the young and do their work and perform well in their jobs. So the economic impact on people who are already struggling, and there's a huge variety of people in Fulham, people who are already finding it hard to make ends meet, I think should be counterbalanced against the economic need and drive for additional turnover and additional revenue and profits. I say no more other than I just want to put any economic benefit that the applicant may refer to slightly in the context of the wider environment. A couple of other features in the letter. There's lots of statements like we intend. Number 1 says we intend to hire. Number 4 says it's possible for us to consider. A point that was picked up earlier is we just see no evidence. There's no evidence that, for example, they may engage only electric bikes. There's no evidence about staffing. It's fine to possibly consider something. Having one person on the door, well, is that one of the 2 people who are not drivers? And it's possible. Well, being possible isn't good enough, is it? Is that the standard that we really require of responsible operators at these premises? We heard, I think, from, I'm going to say it was PC Cardwell, that he made a reference to sites in other locations where, of course, it's well known that they have security members. Well, the applicant's representative says, I'm skeptical about putting SIA security members, as this can be seen to have an adverse effect from my previous backgrounds at McDonald's. Well, where's the evidence of the adverse effect? I'm happy to consider these things, but I need to see the evidence. I want to see the evidence. They are huge, huge issues for us, and they need to be taken very seriously. There's some reference in paragraph 2 to, I would request a temporary license extension. I will utterly defer to the council's lawyers on this. I'm not sure that's what the applicant applied for. It's an extension of hours and the removal of some conditions. So I'm not sure that I don't know whether you can tinker and vary with applications, but I do find it very confusing. I see no merit in a temporary license extension at all. This is an applicant who needs to address something that's not temporary. They need to address something long term, and that is fundamental compliance with licensing laws, and they need to stop committing offences on a regular basis. And that is fundamentally what underlies all of this. Aside from me getting sidetracked by the detail of the application, there is just something much more fundamental and much more important that is going on here. So obviously we will hear from the applicant. I suspect that I'm getting somewhat close to my 25 minutes, though Chair hasn't interrupted me just yet, but I'm sure it's coming soon. So overall, it's probably very clear here. We respectfully ask the committee, don't listen to me, listen to the 3 responsible authorities. They put it better, they understand it better, they are experts in their field. I can't bring that experience and that gravitas to this debate. They can. I see no reason, I've yet to hear of even the beginning of a reason to countenance anything other than the rejection of this application in outright. I think the whole temporary license business is probably a rabbit hole, but I will defer to those who know about the process. And so I respectfully ask you to consider all the facts and the representations and reject this application outright. I do believe there may be a point, though I can't speak to it with any authority, about a review, and I possibly think, given the current, as I think was described by PC Cardwell, generous hours, given the environment, maybe the period of a year or more at reduced hours might be a good, sensible starting point. but obviously that's not an area of my expertise, so I fear I may be stepping out. And I'm going to claim a brownie point because I think I'm going to finish before my 25 minutes, so at least the chair will be happy.
Thank you very much. Just a minute more, anyway. Thank you, John. Can I have Graham to speak? And that is 5 minutes. You have Mr. Graham.
Hi, Chair.
Hi.
The best thing about going last is that everyone before you has said pretty much most of what you want to say. So hopefully I won't overrun at all. I represent Walham Grove, which is a very family orientated residential street of some 53 or so houses. We are a very active neighborhood watch area. We've got a very active WhatsApp group. So although you have me this evening, I also represent the street of Walham Grove, which is a conservation area. Our main concern is this creep. We know, as John was saying, there are 32 restaurants, 21 of which offer takeaways. And we know for a fact from the Papa John's and various other cases we've been involved with that if one person gets a permission for a late night opening, the others will all apply for a similar late night opening because they require parity. They will say if Chicken Cottage is open till 5, we want to be open till 5, and it'll be very difficult to say no because they'll say, well, it's parity, or we want parity with what you've granted already. So we know from experience, and from hearing us speak endlessly on this, that you get antisocial behavior around these late night opening places, but it's also the behavior of the delivery drivers. We know from the Papa John's case, there's a huge amount of they may well drop off a piece of chicken, but then they'll stop to have a pee in our garden. Or my daughter works late night because of her job, and she feels very uncomfortable walking past these areas because there's always lewd suggestions and comments that don't go down very well and are not welcome. So I just also wanted to open that. Someone mentioned that Hammersmith and Fulham is a sleep deprived area. It is the most sleep deprived area already, and that's why we come together as residents associations to fight these late night openings, because we know they're going to be detrimental to the already sleep deprived area that we live in. And this isn't helped by the ubiquitous Ring doorbell that it seems to be. When you ring a Ring doorbell, while they're very good because they have cameras and you can see who's there, they're also extraordinarily loud, and in the wee small hours they can be heard several houses away. And I'm very fortunate that I have some very lovely neighbours, but some of them do order takeaways very late at night. So I guess that pretty much all of what's been said, I agree with. The three authorities, I think what they were saying was quite shocking to me, actually, that the owner has been talked to on a number of occasions, has completely ignored everything they've said, and shows no intent to act upon anything they've said. So this is what concerns me. This is what concerns the residents of Walham Grove. So we would very much ask for you to reject this application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. 3 minutes. Okay. Can I ask Andy to speak? 5 minutes, please, Andy.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. Just bring up my notes. I believe the application should be rejected in its entirety. I've been to several of these licensing hearings and not seen one where the representations from local residents, the police, and the other licensing teams have been so unanimous in their opposition. The applicant already has generous licensed hours, which are far in excess of those in the statutory licensing policy, but has still breached these repeatedly. My main objections are summarised in my supplementary representation, but focus on crime and disorder and public nuisance, criteria which the licensing hearing is required to take into consideration. PC Cardwell's representation highlights the increased risk of crime and disorder, and the Safer Neighbourhood teams have echoed the same concerns. The specific issues with the premises are clearly demonstrated by the fight mentioned by Chris Cardwell. I just want to add as a local resident that this area is a hotspot for graffiti along the Telegraph Road and on the railway track towards Hammersmith, where it is pretty much wall to wall, as well as for drug dealing in the area. And this perhaps explains the local large groups of youths gathering late into the night, as you mentioned.
Andy, please, can we put your camera on? Can we see your face?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you.
So I didn't realize it was required. You did mention, I forgot to turn it on.
Thank you.
The report from the Environmental Protection Team notes that the applicant has no regards for keeping their licensing hours and has not considered the disturbance to local residents in his application. They state that trust has broken down and that they expect licensing breaches to continue. The photographic evidence included in the agenda pack speaks for itself. The report from the noise team highlights the disturbance caused by extractor fans. This is a key issue, I think, as it cannot be mitigated by steps like having delivery-only service or in-house riders, as it happens all the time that the restaurant is open. It's unfortunate that the planning permission for the ventilation didn't include a restriction on hours, but I feel that the views of the noise team should take precedence to those of planning, as they can see the equipment in operation. Chicken cottages on a red route area, which makes it wholly inappropriate location for a fast food takeaway, as delivery riders cannot park outside and must use the pavement or nearby residential streets. The risk of antisocial behaviour is exacerbated by the location opposite a very large sports bar with a licensed capacity for over 400 people. The use of in-house riders, which has been mentioned, impacts on the parking available for local residents during the daytime. I'd like to conclude with a few points about cumulative impact. The area has a very large concentration of delivery-orientated fast food takeaways, each repeating the scenes photographed by the licensing team. I cover this point of cumulative impact in my representation, but just want to mention that the list of neighbouring premises sent out in the agenda pack for this meeting is incomplete. It misses out a number of nearby fast food takeaways, such as Fresh Pizza, Rian Valley and Shifu, and includes other less relevant businesses. As other representations have pointed out, it's not just the noise of the takeaway. There is also the disruption caused by deliveries in transit, which is often at speed and along residential streets late at night. As I indicate in my representation, the layout of local roads funnels traffic in ways which north-south and east-west, which makes it particularly disruptive and encourages the illegal manoeuvres, particularly at the dangerous junction with Telgarth Road. I'm also very concerned about the licensing creep leading to later and later hours. It's important for the hearing to remember that this is a residential area and follow the guidelines in the statutory licensing policy. I urge them to reject the licensing application, including its request to remove existing conditions, and consider a temporary or permanent reduction in hours in order to bring these in lines with those which would be given to new applications. That's all, thank you.
Thank you very much, Andy. Thank you. May I ask Daisy to speak, and you have 5 minutes. Daisy?
Thank you very much, Councillor. I submitted and object to this licensing application in its entirety. Actually, John has given a good example of what I wrote in my written objection, personal experiences. I live on Vanston Place. There's about 300 homes here. It's a social housing. It's also sheltered housing for disabled and supported people. There's lots of people here that are very vulnerable and have lots of economic and other issues, particularly on this estate. we have a huge issue here with antisocial behaviour. Ben Coleman has been involved with us as residents, having been our ward councillor for a period of time. I witness regularly all sorts of antisocial behaviour, mopeds, delivery drivers speeding onto the area, urinating, antisocial behaviour with violence and noise and disturbance. We actually got the mopeds to be moved from Vanston Place, but now they just sort of line up on outside Whole Foods instead, and obviously cause a nuisance on the road there. There has been numerous occasions where there's been near misses with children on our private estate. It is known that our estate, it doesn't have CCTV on it. So lots of, that's why we're so attractive in terms of getting away from the main thoroughfare. The chicken cottage I've been aware of for many years. I actually live now on Samuel Lewis Trust in Vanston Place, but used to live on Samuel Lewis Trust in Lisgar Terrace, where I actually brought up my children, and they were teenagers at the time. They were known to make sure that they didn't leave West Ken tube station and be near to a cottage, chicken cottage, because of the trouble that place actually caused. And that was known over 10 years ago. So historically, it's had a really bad reputation. I've made sure that my daughters were always walked to or from West Ken tube station if they had to go anywhere late at night. So this is not a new aspect. It's been going on for years. And just really, I want to say the impact not only on the situation of where a chicken cottage is and what it attracts, but it's also that it can impact and influence the children and teenagers and young people, vulnerable people on the local estates as well. So it's obviously somewhere where they can go to congregate, and they can, you know, there's trouble cause and everything. So, and they will bring it back as well. So it's not just the impact of how they operate and who they attract, but it might also be locals as well that they attract. And I know that, you know, my neighbours have had trouble being able to control their young children sometimes, and having a place like that to go to revel and cause havoc sometimes can be very attractive. So actually extending the hours will only exacerbate all of the issues that we're already dealing with in terms of that. And I think everyone has pretty much summed up the issues that we have in this borough, the impact that we have. And so I really, you know, would be very disappointed if their licence is extended to the early hours. It would just make everything much, much worse for us.
Thank you very much. Daisy, can I ask Miranda to speak for 5 minutes? Hello? Yeah.
Oh, thank you. My objection, I objected under 3 of the licensing objectives: crime prevention and disorder, noise prevention, and public safety. And those 3 have been covered in depth by the licensing authority, by Chris Cardwell of the Metropolitan Police and Ian Inman of the environment part of the council. I really don't have anything more to say to cover those. And in fact, John Scalding and Charlotte have done really well on going into detail about those. I represent Fulham Island. We have 32 flats, and approximately, because we have quite a few rental people living there, but we have probably about 80 people in the building, and we already have an issue because of Vanston Place with I know there's a big sign there now, but delivery drivers use Vanston Place as a cut through from the North End Road to Fulham Broadway. So we have a noise issue constantly. In fact, so much so that my husband and I put in secondary double glazing in our bedroom because I just couldn't sleep at night. And interestingly, my niece was living with me for 3 months from October to December last year. And she has one of those, she's 36, she has one of those phones that picks up noise to say how well she's sleeping. And she was absolutely shocked and horrified that it was recording 20 instances every night of noise where it was saying your sleep's been interrupted. I asked her how she could send that to me, but I'm not that tech, unfortunately. We live quite far away from Chicken Cottage, sorry. But other people have mentioned this. I think my biggest worry is the creep of late night hours. And in fact, on page 52 of the main agenda, and I know John has mentioned this as well, that the police say in their objection, allowing this premise to have late hours will then open up the floodgates for other premises and future premises to do the same. And it seems to me to be a constant that all local takeaways, of which there are a huge number on the North End Road in its entirety, are all constantly applying for extra late hours. I mean, almost to the point where they're virtually operating a 24-hour delivery in what is essentially a residential area, because the North End Road, whilst on the ground floors will have shops, they're residential above, and all the streets leading off are residential as well. The noise is an issue of delivery drivers, let alone the crime and disorder. And other people have already mentioned that it is a crime hotspot. And that we are the most sleep-deprived borough in the whole of London, which is an incredibly awful statistic. I strongly ask the committee to deny this application in its entirety. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I just apologize. I've got care issues with my mother tonight, so I'm going to need to leave the meeting at 8 o'clock because she's 95 and the carer couldn't turn up tonight, so I'm going to have to put her to bed. So my apologies that I do have to leave early tonight.
Thank you for mentioning that. Thank you. And good night. I wish you all the best. You will hear from the council website what decision was. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. May I have Simon to speak, please? Simon Jones, 5 minutes.
Hi, good evening. Yeah, I don't really have a lot to say, but and I live in Effie Place and don't normally get involved in licensing applications if they're that far away from where we live. However, in general, what I want to say is the council, I think, have to decide what kind of borough it wants to run. And by that, I mean, you know, is it wholly supportive of the nighttime economy, or does it respect residents enough that live and work here and have a life here to begin to sort of shut down these applications? Because, as I always say on these meetings, 12 o'clock midnight, the Cinderella hour, as I call it, until 6 a.m., those 6 hours out of the 24 should be totally off limits to most businesses. There needs to be an extremely valid case on why they're opening past midnight. Those customers are typically, you know, who are the customers of, there's an enormous amount of chicken shops. If you just Google Maps, chicken shops, North End Road, there are, I think, over 20. It's a colossal amount of deep fried chicken. You know, first of all, it's not the healthiest food. But second of all, you know, who are all these people serving? You know, I can guess. Obviously, it's people who are probably had a pint or two and, you know, maybe a line of this, that, and the other. So I think the fact that this is already a really deep late license, to be pushing this even further in, I mean, yeah, we might as well again have a free for all, 24-hour, 24/7, and that's not the way we want to go here in Fulham. It smashes all the licensing objectives to pieces, and I think that's been well covered by my fellow neighbours. the noise, the nuisance, the disturbance. And, just in our cul-de-sac here, there's so many youths that just carry a box of deep fried chicken and they just litter all over the cul-de-sac. And it's just not what we want here. It's kind of a race to the bottom. And I'll say that every time I've sat on a licensing committee, I'm 100% that the thing has been rejected. So I'm here again, trying to essentially stand up for the neighbourhood, that we run a proper, decent neighbourhood. We're not the West End. We're not, we don't have nightclubs going until 6 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning even. So my question is to the applicants is, who are you serving? What's the business case here? What's your target customer? And for things like cabbies, late night cabbies and things like that, they can stop in petrol stations, BP, Shells, and all the rest of it up, on the road up to Heathrow. There's quite a, and there's a couple of 24-hour shops around Fulham Broadway. There are places to get a snack. It's not like, people that are away from their home cannot find any way to eat or have a drink. And by drink, I mean non-alcoholic. So yeah, I just don't see any validity in trying to, it's a race to the bottom. So I would wholeheartedly ask the council to reject this license in full. And just above all, respect the fact that Fulham and Hammersmith are should be a decent neighbourhood. With that 12 midnight to 6 a.m. Absolute minimum, because that we need our sleep and rest. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you very much, Simon. Now I'm going to go to the ward councillor to speak. Can I ask Councillor Ben Coleman to speak,
Thank you.
please?
Thank you. Yes, I'm a councillor for the North End Road runs down from the Telegraph Road. The Button North End Road runs down right into my ward and beyond my ward. But residents from my ward have spoken already tonight, along with other people. I think you'll be glad to hear that there's very little left to say. I think that hasn't already been extremely well expressed. It's quite clear that from what everybody has said, that this application, if approved, would increase the antisocial behaviour in the area. It would both possibly by leading to more crime and disorder, and the difficulties that the drivers and the noise of the drivers and the way they park cause to residents who are trying to sleep. I have been struck in reading the papers and hearing the comments raised by many people in the way that the applicants have responded to the concerns raised with them by the police and the council and different departments of the council. And I think somebody said it's kind of striking that the most obvious response they've made is not to address the issues, but to ask for a longer licensing hours. And for me, as I think has already been suggested tonight, that really is the wrong way around. I think you prove yourself to be a good corporate citizen first of the borough, and people will have heard me talk a lot about this. You're a citizen of the borough, you're a corporate citizen, you have responsibilities as well as rights, and you need to prove yourself that. And then once you've done that, you're in a better position to come and ask for an extension of licensing hours. Although I have to say, Mr. Jones, pick up Mr. Jones's point, yes, of course we would like a more thriving nighttime economy, but that isn't the same thing as giving longer licensing hours to chicken shops. It's a different thing. I would support him there. So I would share in short, I don't think the applicants, although they'll speak in a minute, but I don't think what's on paper and in terms of the actions that they've taken so far, I don't think they've shown behaviour that would reassure the committee that extending their opening times would do anything except increase the possibility of antisocial behaviour and disturbance to residents. And a lot of other detail has been given by a lot of residents and expert people here. I also just like to pick up on the other point which has been made, which is that it is generous, the current opening hours they have, compared with many other similar establishments in the borough and in the area. And given some of the, and Chair, this would be for the committee to talk about once this application has been dealt with, but given some of the points that have been raised by the police, by the council, and by others, it may be that it would be appropriate for the committee to want to bring back the current licensing hours for review to see whether they are over generous and need to be reduced. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to ask the applicant to speak. And before I do that, I must say that I am disappointed that Mr. Udin, the applicant, wasn't here, and he didn't even write to our officer saying that it's not coming, that he's going to send somebody else, that is Mr. Raham, on his behalf, which is really not good. But again, however, I'm going to allow Mr. Raham to speak, and their time will be 70 minutes altogether. That is Tom Cochran and Mr. Raham to speak. So you can share your time together.
Good evening, thank you. It's just noted that Raheem is part of Chicken Cottage operations team and is here on behalf of Raheem Uddin, the license holder of the premises. It's quite clear there's many objections to the license application. Throughout this period of time, we have given consideration to the original application. We've taken information from PC Cardwell, which appreciate his time along the way and support in guiding us along this process. The license was transferred early last year from a previous license holder. It was a previous license holder where the fight originally occurred, and since then, as a new franchisee in with our business, we have guided Fahim Uddin in the right direction as much as possible. Appreciating along the way there have been breaches by minutes, as it's been noted by the licensing authority, which again we don't dispute. The business Chicken Cottage head office don't dispute. The franchisee Fahim Uddin does not dispute. We did discuss with the police and licensing team as well the option of extending by just 1 hour and removing any in-store service and having only deliveries. And as noted by residents earlier who have spoken to me and reached out directly, we did seek to and do seek to still increase by 1 hour for the delivery service. That delivery service would be managed by the franchisee by the business directly. It's noted and well received across all businesses across London and across the UK in particular, and residents, that riders do cause a disturbance. There is no denying that whatsoever. And previous work that I've done with the Westminster Council proved that, you know, successfully, and Manchester Council, by the way, that we have employed riders and reduced disturbances outside local residents' properties as well. That being with our property in their borough. Now, there is correlation to what's been discussed earlier. We do look to, we would, if successful, recruit our own riders, 3 riders that would be, and we would commit to obviously a review, which would be hopefully welcomed along the way. What we would like to do from, as we've started to provide through recently, is that the business is acting in such a responsible way. I agree with other councillors' comments, the local authorities' comments, and residents, that there have been breaches and the business hasn't acted in such a responsible way, going back predating almost a decade now, where crime or disturbances can happen from, as it's put, chicken shops. There is a very strong point on our part that this property, this business inside our estate, is the 3rd busiest in the country. It does and has struggled to close down on time. The franchisee has acknowledged that. Mr. Uddin has acknowledged that. There have been issues, as I stated, surrounding the previous licensee. And since that's been changed, we have taken steps to promote as much as possible compliance. Now, the riders, as I say, have caused issues. We would look to recruit our own riders. And again, the incident which PC Cardwell has brought up earlier, we don't object. That did happen, and it's not something that we or the franchisee or anyone would want to happen. And unfortunately it did, but we welcome that sort of follow-up afterwards as well, and we do appreciate the involvement from the police and the authority at that point. We refer to it's referred to as breaking the law. That much of this has happened under the previous license holder, and the breaches that have happened along the way under the current license holder are not disputed at all. It is understood, and it is acknowledged in that sense as well. Bringing this all to some formality, though, the reality is that there are businesses inside every area across the country that can cause disturbance. If I was to order a late night delivery from any borough inside London, I could do so from outside of that borough as well. So, for example, a property in a neighbouring area can deliver inside Hammersmith and Fulham. There is that bouncing between districts and councils. Now, there will always be disturbances in London. There will always be cars. There will always be trucks at night. There will always be, well, not necessarily trucks, but there will always be the opportunity for disturbance. We would look to, and we request to, recruit our own riders using electric bikes and to manage that service. The reason why we want to take that step is after speaking with residents, after speaking with councillors and speaking with the authorities, there is justification to recruit our own riders and to manage those people. By doing that, it means that we can bring those people inside the property for the extra hour. We can make sure that they are not stood outside, their engines are not running, and that we can act in a responsible way as well. It's making sure that those people, those who it's been alluded to earlier, can be outside making lewd comments, and not very nice atmosphere for people to be walking past. I wouldn't want to walk past that myself, just for full transparency. It's the point where we can bring those into the property and manage them a lot better. Yes, there is very different trading hours compared to other businesses, and that is something that we do appreciate in that respect as well. I think there was a comment earlier regarding 720 deliveries. I would say that would be amazing, but that will never be a reality. We would look to receive some extra revenue from trading for the extra time, but we wouldn't expect it to produce such volumes. I appreciate the residents' concerns in that noise is going to be a problem, and that is one of the main reasons why we look to bring those riders in-house by not allowing self-employed riders to travel across the borough, by bringing them to an employed status where the franchisee or Chicken Cottage have control over them, and also managing their performance as well. By doing this, we can make sure that any upset, any problems are managed and are taken into consideration along with local councillors and residents' concerns. We did request for a temporary licence, and that was in the thought, or the ambition, should we say, that we can work with residents, work with the police, and work with the council to not only prove that this could work, but also giving the opportunity for review. That being that it can be pulled back at any point as well, by proving, or at least attempting to prove, that such a sort of almost trial could prove on both sides that it does have some warrant. It also promotes the opportunity for the franchisee to prove and to almost dispel any concerns, but also gives the opportunity to work a lot closer with residents, which we appreciate in this instance. The franchisee has not done enough of, whereas we have along the way tried to contact residents and discuss any concerns along the way as well. That being said, I don't want to, dispel anyone's concerns. We would look to act in a responsible way to work with the council and the authorities, including the police and noise team, to make sure that such actions of riders are brought in-house and managed a lot better. This is an economy that is working throughout the night. Our customers, for example, 21% from a recent survey, which was conducted by Deliveroo, 21% of our customers are public sector workers who are working unsociable hours. And from previous TENS applications, the additional hours have increased sales by 9% across the business. That is the facts. It does prove that there is an opportunity. It does prove that we are appealing to a market, and that it's not just a late night chicken shop. The delivery option is something that we would wish to be considered, and if successful, we would work with all the relevant parties to review as necessary that extension. Thank you.
Well, does Mr. Redem wants to speak, or Mr. Tom Cockrod? Is that okay? Do you want him to say something?
But I think that's all on behalf of the applicant and Chicken Cottage Limited. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Finally, comments and questions. Can I ask councillors, to ask question? Can I ask members to ask question, please?
Who would you like to go first?
Okay, thank you.
Well, that's me then. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Thank you. It's been quite a long hearing already, so you'll be pleased to know that many of my many questions have already been answered, so I will be hopefully quite brief. I do have a number of questions that I would like to ask, mainly for clarification. My first questions are, and you'll forgive me if I'm reading while I'm speaking because there's quite a lot of information in this application. My first questions are to the licensing authority. So Adrian, I think this is probably for you. It's really about the kind of the enforcement and the breaches that were recorded. I note from the papers that you say that this property was first brought to your attention by the police incident. Now, I do perhaps anecdotally recall actually this property being mentioned in a licensing hearing prior to that. You may recall, I think you were present, and I think it was Fresh Pizza further up the North End Road when they were applying for 3A or 4AM license. One of their arguments in favour of their application was that Chicken Cottage is open until 4 AM anyway. And so arguably, it was actually brought to the authorities' attention prior to the police incident. But subsequent to that, there's obviously been a number of breaches of the license. So my question is twofold. There's a gap between May and October I assume in monitoring. What led to that gap between May and October? And then secondly, what has happened subsequent to the last reported breach in October?
So I can confirm there were no test purchases that took place between May and October. And as I understand it, we didn't receive as many complaints after the test purchase that we arranged on the 14th of May. And it was only really then when it was almost the noise team took it upon themselves to arrange a test purchase in October, when they were doing general test purchases in the area, that it was sort of raised to our attention again. So really, that's the reason for the gap between the May and October. And since then, there has been another test purchase in the last couple of weeks, but there was, I think, a miscommunication on the times that the premises was open, and the test purchase actually took place when the premises was licensed. So I think it was about 11:30 in the evening. So there's nothing else really in terms of test purchasing since the end of the chronology that I put in my representation.
Okay, thank you. It has been mentioned by numerous people, including PC Cardwell, that the current license is actually very generous. It dates back, I think, to 2005, when maybe the landscape was a little bit different in terms of licensing. But given the large number of breaches that have been recorded, one would have accepted perhaps a review or more intense monitoring.
It is a premises that we have considered reviewing, and I think we came quite close to reviewing the license, or at least taking some more formal enforcement action, maybe even potentially a prosecution in May, after the incidents, sort of, in April from the LET team, and then culminating in some advice, some verbal advice that we gave, verbal warning that we gave. But then really that was stopped, that was put on ice for the time with the test purchase that was successful on the 14th of May, in terms of they didn't fail that test purchase. And I think with any reviews, you really need to find a number of breaches that happen quite close together. So we didn't have that. So then the review never happened, never took place. That's not to say that, obviously, given the information that we've heard this evening from residents and from generally, when you put all the information together, that's not to say that a review isn't something that may be considered in the future, depending on how the premises obviously operates going forward.
Thank you. I'm going to come back to you for one more question in a second. But if I could just ask PC Cardwell, have the police considered requesting a review of this licence?
Good evening, Councillor. Not at this time, to be honest with you. Obviously, we sit in slightly different camps when it comes to the local authority. Predominantly, we deal with the prevention of crime and disorder. I did do a check, as I would do for any licensing here, and for the last 12 months, of concern has only been that actual incident that I mentioned on Sunday, the 12th of March. So again, although we work with Mr. Overton and colleagues from the local authority, we do have slightly different interests. That predominantly ours would be the prevention of crime and disorder. So if at this premises, we were seeing, fights every week or even once a month, absolutely we would look to say, well, the police would lead on that. It's definitely crime and disorder. To prevent that happening, the option is either reduce the hours or look to revoke the licence.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so my next question, I'm not sure, Adrian, if it's for you or if it's for Lorna. So I'll ask it, and then you can decide which is the correct person to answer. There has been one or two people have mentioned that the application itself, the box that is ticked, I didn't write the page down, I'm afraid, but it's essentially it's asked the box that's ticked in the application says indoors rather than outdoors or both. Despite clearly the wording suggesting that it is both. So can I ask, is this application actually valid?
Yeah, it's actually valid. They'd put it, just because they've not ticked it there, but they had put in the additional information that from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. takeout only, which would suggest that they're going to do outdoor sales. So that's how we read it. So it doesn't matter. It's still valid because they'd still put them points in there just because they've not clicked that box because they have supplied that information in the application.
That's fine. Thank you. I just I thought it would be slightly silly of us to go through hours of this and then discover that we couldn't actually grant a license. Thank you.
Yeah, it can be. It's just an admin error on there, but they had put it in the application, so it can be considered.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. My next question, I think, is, and then I will be coming to the applicant in a second, but my next question, I think, actually might be to Goethe. And it's a technical question, which ordinarily I would probably ask you when we go to our discussions afterwards, but just for transparency, I think I'm going to ask it here and now, which is that Councillor Coleman has spoken. Normally, when we hear a ward councillor, we give a lot of weight to what the ward councillor says. Councillor Coleman is actually the councillor for a different ward. So can you just tell the committee how we treat him in this hearing? He's not a resident. He is a councillor, but he's not the ward councillor. And Councillor Coleman, this is no reflection whatsoever on what
No,
you
it's
said.
a very good point. It's a fair point, and that's why I went. I think it's an interesting point, and that's why I went to the trouble of saying that I had a number of. I think this affects the residents who have already spoken, who do live in my ward. Walham Grove is one of the examples.
Indeed, no, you did make it clear. So I'm not suggesting anything untoward, but I'm just asking Goethe how we should treat Councillor Coleman's representation.
As an individual representation, he's not representing other residents. Looking at the page, what page is it? Sorry, I've got too many things open. 66 of the committee report. Councillor Ben Coleman says, having heard from constituents, I would like to object to this application to extend the delivery hours. So I read this as an individual objection, not on behalf of the ward or his local residents. Councillor Coleman, am I correct?
If that's the way you think it's best to interpret it, I'm perfectly happy with that. I mean, I'm simply making a point, but I don't think the points I made, to be quite honest, were any different from the points that anyone else has made. And I think they probably made the points at a greater length and in greater depth than I did and made more impact.
Yeah, and as a councillor, you are entitled to make an objection to an application in the borough. So I don't see a problem with it. That's
fine, thank you. So I would ordinarily have asked that question when we go to deliberations, but I thought it fairer that everybody could hear the answer. So that's great.
But Councillor Stanton, are you questioning how much weight in terms of how many people Councillor Coleman is representing, whether he's speaking on behalf of various residents?
No, but normally when we hear something, if one of the ward councillors speaks, we take everybody's representation seriously. But when a ward councillor speaks, we take it maybe even more seriously. And I just wanted to know whether effectively we were treating Councillor Coleman as a ward councillor or, as you say, an individual.
But how much weight you councillors will put to any representation, it is in your discretion based on the evidence and what you heard tonight.
Oh, that's great, thank you. I have my answer. That's terrific. Councillor Short-Verdier, I see your hand is up. I only have a couple of more questions. Do you mind? Would you like to jump?
It's okay. Please carry on. When you finish, Councillor Verdier will come in.
Okay, thank you. Right, there's notes. So this is a question to Mr. Corcoran or Tom, if I may call you Tom. Is he there? Oh, there we go.
Apologies.
Thank you. Yeah, so coming back to what the chair said earlier, actually, which is, could you explain to us why the applicant isn't actually here this evening?
He's with his brother in hospital. He's been taken into hospital.
Okay.
So unfortunately,
that's you don't need to elucidate. That's fine. It's just it is always very important for us to hear from the applicant so we can question them. It's unfortunate that we won't have that opportunity this evening, but that sounds as if he has, unfortunately, a very good reason for that. So I do have some questions which relate to him. My first question is, you were saying, I won't say excusing him, but you could say excusing him, because he only took over the licence in May of last year. Now, from what I understand, and perhaps if my understanding of this is wrong, can licensing please jump in? But if not, I think I've understood it. That was essentially a tick box paper exercise, because he had actually been operating this franchise for quite some time as if he were the licensee. Can you confirm that to me? It is in the licensing authorities letter. It says, this is page 49. Please note that whilst the current licence holder was transferred into the licence on the 26th of May, he has previously explained that he has been responsible for the operation of the premises since 2014.
Yep. So that is true. He was operating the property as an operator, not as the owner. The previous ownership were responsible for the contracts with Chicken Cottage, were responsible for licensing activities. It's almost a manager in that property, and the information obviously was not handed to him at that time. Prior to that, it was told you can trade in that shop until the early hours of the morning, and it was almost taken for granted. That really wasn't true, as he acknowledges. And obviously, when we stepped in to say, actually, since this issue, let's have a look at the overall contract as well. It was then that he had taken over the property as the full franchisee, as the person on the rental agreement as well for the business as well. So yes, there is. He was managing the business previously and is now the owner of the business from May onwards.
It's unfortunate that in 10 years nobody noticed that the licensable hours were being breached. PC Cardwell, just while I'm asking Tom a couple of other questions, I don't know how your Met Police systems work, but can you do a very quick search on any reported incidents at that property since 2014?
I can certainly try, Councillor. It's called an IIP and my system is currently crashed, but I can certainly do my best.
Can you just do that in the background while I'm just asking Tom a couple of questions? Thank you.
No, thank you.
That's terrific. Okay, Tom, thank you. So my next question is about these riders that you are suggesting that you might employ. And my real question is why you haven't already done it.
At the moment, there's two considerations that we wanted to do. This was on the back of many discussions with PC Cardwell in particular, but late last year we did have a similar consultation, as I referred to earlier, in the Westminster Council, and one of their activities to promote was the use of self-delivery and electric bikes and managing that service better. They'd done an in-depth report which stated the disruption and the impact of the sort of gig economy and these drivers in particular, their lack of respect for neighbours in particular, especially as it's been mentioned, whilst they're parked outside with music often on, and agreed making unsolicited comments to people as well, and also fighting it. There is a crime statistic that refers directly to the use of delivery riders, in particular their bikes as well being stolen. It's a crime hotspot in that sense. It's something that we are talking as a business to other franchisees about as well, not just in this district, in this borough, but also in other areas as well, and looking to promote that more. And it's important for us to also manage that customer expectation. It's much nicer when you actually have someone who is invested in that business and employed by the business delivering the food as well. You get a better service as a fact, and it's quicker. And it also provides a lot more care and due diligence from the franchise side as well, from the business. It's not been done any sooner whilst we've been going through this process, and just to understand what we needed to do, how many people we needed, how many people we would need to recruit, and what sort of hours they would be requested to do. We have already started scoping out that work already, and if successful with any extension or any consideration, that would happen very quickly.
Okay, great. So let's just say, well, it was actually two questions. If you're unsuccessful in your application today, given that you already have a license to 1 AM and 2 AM, would you still be looking into going self-driver?
So absolutely, yeah.
Okay, fine. Well, if we could just maybe explore that in a little more depth then. So I have to confess, I do know the property. I live kind of a 10-minute walk away from it. It's opposite West Kent Tube Station, so I've probably walked past it, I don't know, a few thousand times. So I am aware of the area very well. There's a couple of questions that come to mind. The first of which is parking. It is on a red route, as has already been said. So there is a very small amount of off-street parking in an alleyway. How are you proposing to kind of address that issue? That's the first question. The second question is, if you're employing your own riders, there will be quiet times, presumably during the evening or early morning, whenever it is you're operating. Where will they be? What will they be doing? What, do you have space for them within the property? How will you be managing them?
No problem. So to answer the first question, there is a street aside of the property. We wouldn't want anyone in the alleyway. There's a couple of the main reason for that is because it is considered an escape route for anyone. It's not safe for anyone to be there. And quite often, as I've noted, there is a lot of waste that generally collects there as well. We wouldn't want anyone in that alleyway. So the street aside, forgive me, I've not got the actual street name, but there is parking facility available inside that street as well. Notably for small bikes. It's a
I think it
one-way
is
route.
Yeah, well, that's what I was about to say. It is. Well, it's not one. Well, specifically, it's one way, but also you can only turn it. You can't turn across the North End Road to get to it. So if you're heading south, you physically can't access that. You can only access it coming north, and then it's one way.
That's something we are willing to work with. It has been acknowledged that is a situation that we would have to obviously observe as well. And the second question, the riders would be brought into the property. They would not be outside. We can, because they are employed, we can also, forgive me for sounding blunt, but they can be doing cleaning activities. The dining area dining area is always something that I believe is important to keep clean. And as straightforward as I can be, they can also be cleaning the windows and also outside the shop, which is also more important than anything really. Quite often
street sweeping,
the pavement quite often needs a good scrub, as I'm sure you've seen. We would have them doing housekeeping tasks. There is one thing that I would make clear though, is that the riders would not be inside the sterile area behind the counter. It's not possible for us to do that as a responsible food business.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so then my last question, I think. You mentioned in your presentation that a number of steps have already been taken to promote the licensing objectives by the applicant. Can you just outline what they are?
The first one was a daily lit patrol outside the property. It may be noted by residents, it may not be, but that has happened and still does happen. The second one was actually on the franchisor's behalf, which is for myself. In formally training Mr. Uddin, which is still ongoing. Training is an ongoing task in licensing activities, in being compliant and being a good neighbour. We are also looking at local litter picks, moving further out to the area, which is something that the business as Chicken Cottage are promoting. It's almost a love where you live event, which has been successful by other companies, and completing litter picks and promoting the brand in a positive way, albeit given the issues that have arisen, which we do acknowledge. So these are more sort of generalized activities. He has acknowledged, like I said, the breaches, albeit, 5-10 minutes. That's not disputed. And to go just to give some clarification on some of the issues that he has faced as well. Quite often, self-employed delivery riders can decide where they want to deliver. They can cancel an order. So if they see an order come up on their tablet or their phone, often they operate two phones. If they see one that's worth more money, they'll cancel the one that's not worth as much. Quite often we found that riders have cancelled orders, and you then have to wait another 15-20 minutes for another rider to turn up. It's noted that this has happened quite a few times, and still happens across other shops of ours, where we find that we're waiting for the shop to close the shop for a last minute rider to turn up. So the customer does have their order fulfilled. It's an argument of, do we cancel the order? Do we fulfill the order? It looks like the shop's open. It necessarily isn't always open to be trading, but it does look like the shop is open in that respect as well. So we see that managing that service ourselves provides that clarity of, no, the shop is shut now, the riders are all finished now, they're leaving the shop, and the lights are off on the dining area. If we was to operate a delivery-only service in the extended hours that we seek to have approved, that would happen. The lights on the outside of the property would be off, and the lights in the dining area, if the staff aren't working, would be either dimmed or off. So that is another step that we would take to make sure that the shop doesn't have anyone hanging around outside, or at least attempting to enter the property.
Okay, thank you very much. No more questions from me at the moment, unless PC Cardwell has an answer for me. If he doesn't, I'm happy to wait. Or
Councillor, I've got my colleague. She stopped watching EastEnders, so she's currently trying to get all the information for you. As soon as I've got it, I will let you know. But
thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, PC. Can I ask?
Thank you.
Councillor, you have finished?
Yes, I am. I'm now finished.
Okay. Can I ask Councillor Farren Shovade to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarity, I've heard the words ward councillor being thrown around. I'm the ward councillor alongside Councillors Brown and Taylor, just for the sake of clarity. So this is a question to the applicant, and because in its letter to licensing at page 106 of the report, there is a desire that is expressed of finding a way to speak to councillors and allow the applicant to prove to the residents, the police and the council that it is fully committed to ensuring the best outcome for the local community. Now, you've told us that you weren't minded to put in place an in-house delivery operation prior to your application. We've heard as well the dates, which I'll go through: 12th of March, 21st of April, twice, 23rd of April, 24th of April, 25th of April, twice, 26th of April, 2nd of May, 6th of May, 9th of May, 14th of May, 5th of October, 12th of October, 26th of October, 21st of October, missed that one. Now, alongside colleagues and my wider team and every member of council, we're collegiately responsible for the welfare and well-being of our residents. It feels to me as if I'd gone into your house, smashed all of your furniture, and I'm asking to go into your house again, and I'm demanding that you give me the keys, and only when and if you give me the keys, I'll promise not to smash your furniture again. So, for the applicant, whoever want to take this, could you've found a way to speak to the councillors? I'm here. We're here. How are you gonna prove to me then that you're committed to ensuring the best outcome for the local community if you haven't chosen to do that before?
That is to Mr. Cochran.
It is, yeah. So it's a very difficult question to answer in the way that it's been proposed there, in terms of the property aspect. The intention, obviously, from the franchisee, Mr. Uddin, was never to upset anyone by having the property open at those points. It has been a handover, which hasn't been exactly successful in the license between an operator to the business owner. Quite often it was almost taken for granted, the information that was given. Now, in that respect, yes, there is the request to act now as a good neighbour and a responsible business. That is something that even us as a franchisor, as Chicken Cottage, have had to take some reflection on and say, do you know what, there is a lapse here. There is something isn't going right. The franchisee has a lot of opportunity to learn as well, and quite often it's a point that we need to step in, which is exactly what we've done here, to ensure that there is compliance moving forwards and that the business does act in a responsible way. So it's very hard to say trust us again, but there is a lot of weight behind this now and support to ensure that the franchisee and Chicken Cottage West Kensington act in a responsible way to all of the neighbours. And by doing the first step, which was to operate our own delivery service, was by a noise reduction aspect as well, not having riders outside and managing that service a lot better. There is, other residents have also alluded to the fact that there is always going to be a delivery aspect in the area. And as I said, you can order deliveries from neighbouring boroughs as well. That's something that is very hard to stop. What we want to do as a business, and request to do so by extension of that hour, is to operate it in more of a responsible way that actually achieves some form of licensing objective in making sure that it's not only safe but responsible, and obviously acts in that responsible way to make sure that the residents aren't put out by this by the operation.
Thank you. I appreciate your honesty and that you've been given a difficult case tonight. You've talked about noise. On page 39 of the report, we get a representation from the Environmental Public Protection Nuisance that basically, tells us that there's a lot of noise coming through your area that's disturbing neighbours. Yet, you seem to want to be proposing to remove condition 39 because you say to us there is more noise emitted from the road outside. Now we have our own officers coming to us and saying that at this junction, Targoff Road, the A6, is very, very high levels of noise coming from your area. Why are you asking us to remove a condition that would ensure, well, at least try to ensure that you don't disturb neighbours?
There's two ways of looking at that. Yes, there is the noise from the neighbours. There is also the noise from the roads outside, which the franchise that business does not have the control over, other than those third-party riders. It was more of a consideration, and after discussing with the licensing committee, that is something that we're happy to accept for it to stay. It was more of a request at the time that, given that the area is such a highly built-up area, it's very hard for us to understand. And I think in terms of the licensing, the wording inside that license as well, it doesn't specifically say that whether that noise is coming from inside the property, outside the property, or around the property. In particular, I think it would be extremely more well written as well, if it was to explain whether noise was emitted from inside the property, whether it was emitted from customers or in general, or whether it's just from built up traffic in the local area as a point of operation. There are some stores that of ours that have parking bays outside. We accept that, you know, noise is going to be a factor from that. This property doesn't, albeit I have seen cars and, you know, other bikes parked outside when they shouldn't be, but it would be, I think, more understood, and if it was well worded as well in that respect. But I'm not using that as a justification towards that. We would be happy for that to stay in if it was more well descriptive as well.
Thank you. The last question before I hand over, I'll do the courtesy of my colleagues not asking too many questions in a row. You're proposing to add a condition to your application to essentially prevent, this is on page 36, to essentially prevent minors from entering premises after 11 p.m. Why do you think someone who's 17 shouldn't buy chicken at 11:15?
It's more of a point of, yes, there is a fair argument of that we can't start asking for ID at the counter, but it's down to the interpretation, just like the, you know, challenge 25, in that if somebody looks young enough, is there a reason why they're out so late? It was work that we did with the Hillingdon Council in particular, where children were coming into the shop within late at night, midnight onwards, and it was a concern of the franchisees and then raised with the police and the council at the time that should children be attending the chicken shop, as it's been put, in such late hours, that was something that not only from a food point of view and from a responsible eating point of view, but making sure that minors aren't subjected to being out so late or being alone. It was obviously not for us to comment on any further at that point, but it was raised with us inside that licensing objective, and it just acting as a responsible business, or at least, you know, responsible adults, as to understand. But I do agree it's very hard for us to police over the counter, but to use common sense and to apply common sense in that way. Although if a minor, when we would always make clear, if a minor did attend the property and was in distress, then they would be given a safe space to obviously wait for the police in that way as well. And that is one thing that I think should always be made clear, especially in a licensing point of view as well, is that any responsible business or any business at all trading any hours after, let's say, even 9 p.m. should give safe space to anyone who needs it.
Thank you. Chair, this is it for now. I want to give you some airtime as well.
Thank you. I think Councillor Dominic Stanton, your hands is up.
You're on mute.
You're on mute. You want to?
I've done it again. Apologies. Sorry, Chair. I was going to say, just before you launch into your lengthy questioning,
I mind what you have said.
I do have Councillor Shortverdi has just reminded me of a question that I omitted to ask the applicant, which is again about the removal of conditions. Whilst I can understand most of the requests for removal, the point 4, which says all members of staff shall be easily identifiable as such, etc., etc. I'm curious as to why you would want that condition removed.
It's more of a consideration again as to how we identify those members of staff. Is it by wearing uniform or by wearing name badges? All staff would be identifiable behind the counter, and the point of us also employing our own delivery drivers would make them at least identifiable by wearing uniform as well. By wearing chicken cottage uniform in particular. So it's also a point again as to the explanation of that in general. Is it just by wearing uniform, We see it that all employees must wear uniform in that sense. They must wear a chicken cottage uniform. The managers and franchisee, when working behind the counter, will wear a uniform and hat. So they are identifiable in that way. But at what point or how are we understanding or requesting for those employees to be identified in particular?
I mean, that was a great answer, but I'm not quite sure that I understood why you would want to remove the condition. Sorry, let me explain. Are you saying that the current condition isn't clear enough? It's not the principle of the condition that you want removed, it's that wording.
It's
clarified merely to say that all members of staff must be clearly identifiable
by wearing a uniform. Yeah.
So and it's, I mean, because take McDonald's, you go in, everyone's wearing a badge that says McDonald's and John Smith or whatever their name is. That you would be happy with, but it's just the wording, the current wording, that you have a lack of clarity on, effectively.
It is a lack of clarity, and I've seen it in other conditions inside this application and many others in the past as well. That the wording should be very explicitly understandable, especially when the interpretation can be so varied.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. That is it for me now, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, councillors. My first question will go to the Noise and Nuisance Officer, Ian. Has he gone?
Yes, hi, Chair. Sorry, yeah, I was just putting my camera back on.
Okay,
so it was a little bit slow to react.
Okay. Why didn't you suggest the condition of regarding generated noise from the extractor? Why didn't you give them condition? Why wasn't condition given to them, either to replace it or what? Why didn't we do that?
Okay, so we haven't established the extraction systems to be causing a statutory nuisance. To apply a condition, it would have to be done. It can't be done retrospectively through the planning process. If the system is to be changed, altered, or amended, the applicant or the owner could make a new application to ensure that it's carried out in line with what the current requirements would be for both noise levels and filtration and extraction. But we can't actually impose a condition as such. We can only serve a noise abatement notice if we are satisfied it's operating at a level that's excessive and causing a statutory nuisance. I mean, the concern for us is, one, the system is old, as I explained earlier, and if the premises is granted the extension of hours, the longer that premises is open and the later into the night, early hours of the morning, the greater the noise impact, especially when ambient background noise levels drop, late at night. Also, as I mentioned in my representation, the extraction system is located at the rear of the premises, where the sort of like the motor units are located, and the premises itself then acts as a noise barrier to, say, cut off background noise levels from roads, so which would mask the impact. But if you are in a rear-facing bedroom, you will hear the noise from the extract system above, say, road traffic noise. It will mask it.
Okay.
But unfortunately, we can't impose a condition retrospectively for that.
Okay. Thanks, Ian. It makes sense now. Okay. My question is to Mr. Cochran. Mr. Cochran, suppose if our noise and nuisance said that, have you considered changing the extractor? Have you ever considered that, because it makes noise? Have you considered that? That's Mr. Cochran.
We have considered that. There's not just the noise aspect, but also the air filter. There is a system called Purifair, which Fahimudin, the franchisee, is exploring the installation of as well. In line with this, it not only purifies the air, well, it doesn't necessarily purify, but it cleans the air to a certain degree, which provides less of an odour, in particular for any neighbouring properties, but also is a more silent operation. It's not completely silent, but it does provide a quieter operation as well. That is currently being quoted by Purifair directly.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I must say I'm sorry to hear about Mr. Udin's family in hospital, and that he wasn't able to attend. Are you in charge of franchise chicken? You're in charge of all the franchise?
Yes.
I can see that. Okay. In that sense, you may one of my councillors, one of the committee member asked about the management, and he said he used to be operator. What's the difference between operator and manager or the owner? I don't see any difference between those two. If you can operate, then you are the manager of the place. So your explanation to me, I don't understand it. Please make it much clearer. If when he was an operator, he wasn't able to control certain things. So as being the owner, you think he would be able to do better now? Is that what you're trying to tell us?
The operator is not the license holder nor the franchisee. The operator is purely a manager who doesn't have control of the finances of the business, who doesn't have control of the day-to-day say-so of the business. They're a manager, and that's all. They can quite often recruit staff, but they can't really do much else other than ordering stock. The owner of the business is purely responsible for everything else. In this case, the handover hasn't happened, in fact, very well at all. It's been mishandled, which we as a franchisor take some responsibility for as well, in ensuring that the information should have been passed over much better, and the training of Mr. Udin in particular should have been a lot clearer and well planned out.
Okay, before Mr. Udin becomes the owner, how many staff does he manage?
Typically, as a business overall, from the current numbers, there are a total of 19 employees at the property.
19. And does that include the riders?
No.
So
No.
how many riders does he have?
None.
How many riders come to the premises in a day? How many?
Typically in a day, the property can fill upwards of 80 deliveries. On a quiet day, upwards to almost 124 at peak. So that is per day.
All right. But now you are saying you're going to recruit your own riders, and it's going to be 3.
Yes, that would be the realistic starting point from our observations. The reason why we've gone with 3, just to be clear as well, is to ensure that those riders don't have the opportunity to, forgive me for standing around and wasting time themselves. It would make better business sense not to have too many riders than to have it's a case of too little or too many. 3 was the optimum number to begin with inside this process. And I was also asked a question from one of the residents as to, well, would you have those riders working all day then? Yes, we would. Those riders we would have 3 riders on shift throughout various parts of the day, on and off throughout the week. That gives us the ability to fully control that service 7 days a week throughout every hour of operation.
So you want to say that you have 3 riders that will cover 24 hours? I mean, the whole hours you are talking about.
It wouldn't be the same 3 riders. There would be 3 riders
So
employed.
6. We are thinking of you having 6 then, not 3.
In reality, there would need to be 15 that are available. That would be a variety of contracts, whether it's part-time or full-time, and there would be a clear difference between those as well. The full-time aspect would be a requirement for 4, with the remaining fulfilled by part-time. It also covers the ability to cover sickness and any other events as well. So it does dramatically increase the workforce, but it also improves the service, not only in the local community, but to the end customer, in our belief as well.
Okay. I have Councillor Farhan put up his hand. Please ask your question while I...
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to bounce on one of the questions actually that you've asked, which was about the operator manager details. So my experience of working in retail a few years ago was that there would be a general manager who I assume would be a personal license holder, but then there would be managers who were responsible for the shifts. So let's say the shop would be open, the general manager wouldn't be in, and then there would be sort of deputies for them, sort of arranging everything, really looking at how the shop is run, which includes making sure that the shop's opens on times but also closes on time. So would the person who now holds the license have been involved in the operations and therefore would have been involved in making sure that the shops close on time?
Yes. Fahimuddin was responsible for making sure the shop was closed on time. The difference, though, just for clarity, is that his interpretation of when the shop was closed on time was directed by the previous owner of the business, who had obviously broken that license. So the information there, that is where the understanding is in that respect as well. So it's the same as if I said to Fahim, for example, you can trade until 5 a.m. He would understand and interpret that he can trade until 5 a.m. because I'm obviously of a higher position, and I say that that's what can happen. So he would interpret that that's what can happen. In this respect, that when the information was passed over and he became the franchisee of the property, that was not necessarily fact checked as well, which we also take some, like I said, we take some responsibility for as franchisee.
It's human errors happen, and we're all humans in the end. But you see, the problem with that is that also simultaneously you're telling us to remove a condition that mandates displaying the license, for instance, on the shop. So if there are systemic communication issues, handover issues, or just generally, finding out the correct information to remain compliant, then that's also one of the things that I'm kind of scratching my head and thinking, would that have been the only source of information in the shop? And actually, by the front door, would that actually have prevented that if he had been there?
I think if the license was up on the wall, it would have been a lot clearer for us, for them as well, which also didn't happen in the past. Those situations, have clearly been missed. Mr. Uddin was not even aware of the I think it was 40 plus conditions that were on the license, nor did he understand them in any detail whatsoever until it was myself who sat down with him and went through them and said, well, I'm sure of this one. Now, when I spoke to licensing, these were sometimes classed as grandparent restrictions or conditions, which were passed over from previous licenses and not necessarily are always relevant nowadays, but they pass through different authorities or distinctions in that sense as well, whether it's the police or fire brigade or licensing. So it's a question of how much information was passed over, and the interpretation of those as well. If he wasn't aware of those, the opening hours, he sure wasn't aware of the conditions as well, nor did he understand them when he did see them.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We have Greta to speak, please.
I just wanted to clarify the condition that the Councillor Sherwood-Berdier pointed out in relation to the license being displayed at the premises. That is a mandatory condition. So even if we would agree, your councillors would agree to remove the condition from the license, it's a mandatory condition and it will still be a condition that they need to comply with. I just wanted to point that out.
Thanks. Guys, if I can stay with you, is there in the current wording, because I'm furiously control Fing through the document, but is the wording of the condition as currently, does that sort of say this has to be close to the door, doesn't it? At the point of entry.
Condition 2. No, it was condition 4. No, 1 second. I'm just.
Because I
Condition
think
2.
that's the key part there. Sorry.
It just says it should be displayed at all times within the premises without clarifying where in the premises.
Typically, we don't put them in the windows. They're typically displayed by the at the counter with the liability insurance certificate. That's a standard that we follow, but also many other larger food businesses like McDonald's and KFC also follow.
Yeah, that's fair, but I see it's attached to a word conspicuously, which, you know, if it is Googled, the definition is in a way that attracts notice or attention. So, you know, I'm starting to think there's a lot of these conditions that actually, I don't know when they were set, but they seem to even talk to a number of breaches that we're noticing in this report back. So, yeah, that's where this isn't a question. This is just rambling at this point. It's just I don't understand why these are asked to be removed if they're not even being complied with. So, thank you, Chair. Over to you.
Thank you. Can I have Councillor Dominic to speak?
Yeah, so it was just to follow on from that, but presumably when the condition says displayed within the premises, it must be in a public-facing part of it. This is to Goethe, I think. You know, in other words, it couldn't be on display conspicuously or otherwise in the basement or the back of the kitchen. It would have to be within, well, effectively the red line area.
The red line area, yes. But Lorna can clarify exactly the wording with the mandatory conditions. I don't have them in front of me, whether, as I said, even you councillors agree to remove this condition from the license, it will still be bound by the mandatory conditions, which I don't have in front of me the correct wording, but it will be displayed within the red line of the licensed area. If Lorna can confirm.
Sorry to interrupt. It's not a mandatory condition. It's section 57 of the Act. It's a requirement that the summary is displayed and a copy of the premises license is kept at the premises. So it's a requirement under the Act. That's why it doesn't need to be on as a condition, because it should be complied with anyway. I think Adrian might be able to confirm some of the origins of these conditions, because I think it was previously a night cafe license before it was passed over to what it is now.
Okay, Adrian then, yeah.
Yeah, happy to do that if that helps, Chair. So yeah, this license has actually been unaltered since it was converted during the transition of the Licensing Act 2003. So the Licensing Act was introduced in 2003. Then the transition conversion period took place in 2005, which meant that all of the various licenses and certificates, so night cafe certificate, public entertainment licenses, justices certificate, which wasn't actually relevant for this particular premises, but all of those conditions were then amalgamated onto one premises license, which is why then you've got a late night refreshment premises with 42 conditions on it, which is similar to the Hammersmith Apollo, and a lot of those conditions duplicate other legislation. So they might duplicate health and safety legislation or fire legislation. So I can see why the applicant has wanted to remove those conditions, because they're unenforceable, they duplicate other legislation, and they just make the license very confusing and difficult to enforce. So I can summarize in a bit, if you like, which conditions I wouldn't have an objection to being removed. But I can do that when I sum up, if you like.
Okay, when you sum up.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and the applicant, please, can you mention that you wanted only an hour extension, but this sometimes, could you clarify, that is the applicant I'm asking, could you clarify the hours, what you really want?
It is for clarity, and this is after discussion with the authority, with the police in particular, PC Cardwell, which I appreciate his input on as well. Not necessarily to say that he's agreed or endorsed these, but our request was until 2 a.m. on a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and 3 a.m. on a Friday and Saturday, which is a 1 hour extension. And inside the hour, it would be delivery service only.
So, Lorna, is that what he put on his application? This is what he put on his.
No, the original application was till 3 a.m. until 4 a.m., but he is well within his right to amend the application at committee and propose hours now based on what he's heard from objectors. So you can amend the application and you can consider the hours that he's proposed there. So the extension Sunday to Thursday till 2 a.m. and Friday and Saturday till 3 a.m.
Okay. Can I have a solicitor to speak, please?
I would like to clarify so I can have it on my notes when new members deliberate. Okay. So, and this is for the applicant. So just to clarify, you have agreed to amend the hours to operate from Sunday to Thursday until 2 a.m., Friday and Saturday until 3 a.m. And this is delivery service only.
Yes, that's confirmed.
Not indoors.
Delivery service only. No, there will be no takeaway, no eating in. It would be delivery service only.
And this will be starting from 2300 until 2 a.m. Yeah.
Yes.
So no delivery.
Sorry, this is.
Sorry.
So no, the delivery service only is for the hour extension that we're requesting.
Oh, and the hours until 1 a.m. to remain as they were previously.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. In terms of security, that is to the applicant. So how many security men are you going to be having on your door, or do you have any security?
We don't have security. We see that currently we don't have security, and from my own understanding as well, there's only been one issue at the premises. It's a consideration that we are willing to take up, but it's a very costly one for a small business. Larger businesses like McDonald's, for example, can afford security. And after discussing with PC Cardwell, it's only ever successful almost if you have two security on at any point. For a small business, that is quite heavy. It's like I said, that this is where we've come to the understanding that delivery only would work in a better sort of environment, and also promote a much more healthier lifestyle for residents as such. Dare I use the word healthy in such a broad spectrum.
Okay. So in terms of training, all your staff, are they trained?
All staff are trained behind the counter. Only managers by default are trained in conflict management. And that is something that is done by an external company as well. With regards to training as well, I may know, and I'm sure you may be well aware, third-party delivery riders are not trained. Deliveroo, Uber, Just Eat drivers, none of them are trained, whether they're employed by, whether they're providing a service for those or other companies like Stuart. They're not trained. They have to complete an online video and watch that. But there is no training on respect, no training on how to deliver, what way to deliver, how long to wait at property. With this, we are able to train those riders and make sure that they are providing that service. It also gives the franchisee the ability to, dare I say, follow the rider in their journey as well, and make sure that they are providing a good service to the end customer. Quite often when we've done this, in particular outside of London, we've seen a much better feedback response as well. Customers are happier, and we generally get much more positive feedback from customers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cochran. Committee members, do you have any more questions, please? None. Okay. Can I ask the licensing officer, Lorna McCann, to sum up?
I have nothing further to add, but I just need to clarify that in the report I should have said that Miranda Gilpin was representing the Vanston Place Management Company and wasn't submitting a rep as a resident, just for Gerta's completion of the notes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, can I ask the responsible authorities to sum up, starting with Edrin, please.
Thank you, Chair. As I sort of just touched upon earlier on, I just wanted to clarify the conditions that I wouldn't have an objection to being removed. I don't know if it's helpful if I just read out the numbers rather than go through each condition, just so.
Read out the numbers then.
Yeah. So it's condition 9, conditions 12 to 19 inclusive, condition 22, condition 25 to 27 inclusive, and 29 to 34 inclusive, and condition 41. And I did also note that part of the application is to change the plan, and I think that's a very good idea. I think that the current plan is illegible really, and it does need to be updated. But I think from the licensing authority's point of view, we weren't happy with the new plan, the proposed plan. We didn't feel it's got enough information on the plan. It doesn't have a scale. It doesn't say whether it's 1 to 100 or it doesn't give a scale at all. And it's missing some other information on that. So I would invite the applicant to potentially make a minor variation to change that plan separately. And obviously, if it's the same footprint and we'd need to have a site visit and go out there and just check it's exactly the same footprint, then we wouldn't have an objection to that. Obviously, that's subject to seeing the application. And depending on what your decision is tonight, they may also, with their same application, look to remove some of the conditions that have been duplicated by other legislation. But that obviously completely depends on what you decide this evening. And then just really otherwise to sum up, I think a point was made about Mr. Udin and his responsibilities and involvement back in 2014. And just to confirm that from our conversations with him, he said that he was managing the premises, he was involved with the premises and any decisions at the premises from 2014 onwards. And actually, when we wrote to the license holder on the 25th of April, it was Mr. Udin who actually responded to us and said that, yes, I'm responsible, and understood what our concerns were and understood the advice that we gave him, or said that he understood that advice at that time. I mean, I would really say I think the premises at this stage is fortunate that it wasn't reviewed. I think there was a gap in the offences, and I think they're lucky to be before you today applying for an application rather than being reviewed. And obviously we'll look at the information carefully, and we'll work with residents and other responsible authorities and monitor how the premises operates going forward to consider what our future enforcement action would be. I really think, listening to and having all of the offences summarised this evening, that the premises really needs to operate for at least a year before they with no issues before they consider making another application to extend their times. And I can only suggest that the licence is refused this evening, notwithstanding obviously the conditions that I've mentioned previously. I've got nothing else to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Officer. Thank you. Can I ask PC Cadwell to
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just firstly to mention the delivery option. So as I said to you all earlier, when it comes to the police and the other responsible authorities, we do sit in slightly different council, very different council really. The police predominantly deal with the prevention of crime and disorder. So when a premises says, can we do deliveries and deliveries only, and certain conditions are put in there, so it prevents people going into a premises to purchase food. Does that prevent crime and disorder? Yes, it does. However, we've heard tonight, we've seen from the local authority, the enormous, in my opinion, unacceptable history of non-compliance at this premises. And I agree entirely with Mr. Overton that for me, as the police, we want to see that a premises is operating responsibly before we would even consider any increase in any hours. And if any increase would only be by delivery. And for this premises, we absolutely would not welcome that at this time. I just also want to touch on, I know this was mentioned, my summary was actually all going to be about the last paragraph that had been mentioned in my initial representation. And this is about what's been labelled as the creep effect. I think it was mentioned by, I think Mr. Scolding said there's over 30 late night refreshment outlets on North End Road. And I would really ask the committee that if the extension to this licence is granted, I've already said that it is an extremely generous licence, and I think the latest licence on North End Road, this absolutely would open up the floodgates for other licensed premises to try and match those hours. And I want to use the word disastrous here, because that's exactly what it would be for the police, for the local authority, certainly for residents. Crime and disorder would go up, antisocial behaviour would go up, but also for premises themselves. You know, you've got to imagine that their staff could then become vulnerable, prone to assault, abuse, etc., etc. So upon hearing all the evidence, the police position hasn't changed at all. We'd really request that this licence is not granted. Thank you. Oh, just one last thing, sorry, Chair. I can't get the information, I do apologise, to give you an accurate figure about the last 10 years. If we put 82 North End Road in, there's over 200 hits, and that's not accurate because it will include premises above, even putting Chicken Cottage, it will then include the 264 on North End Road. So apologies, I just can't give you an accurate figure. It'd be unfair to yourselves and also to the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you, PC. Thank you. And can I ask Ian, Noise and Nuisance, to sum up 3 minutes, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, obviously, as stated in our actual excuse me, submission, our concern is purely based on the noise impact and on what that would result in if the hours were extended. It would, as far as we're concerned, clearly lead to the likelihood of statutory noise nuisance in a number of forms to local residents. And what we would much prefer to see is that the operator continue to operate as per the current license, and obviously prove that they can operate in a responsible manner for a respectable period of time before even considering applying to extend their hours again. Obviously, there's been a number of comments made about the issue of bikes, but I would like to just point one thing out, that the use of the electric bikes and the self-delivery drivers, this has actually only been suggested, as far as I can remember, by the applicant since our representation was actually submitted. So prior to that, there was no mention, as far as I can remember or can recall from the original application, about the use of electric bikes and their own drivers. And I think this has only actually been put forward because of the information and the evidence that was provided by our team of the way that the current operation was being carried out. And I think that should really be considered, because if the applicant was very serious about doing this, they should have maybe thought about bringing their own drivers in and operating electric bikes prior to actually this application being submitted, because then the likelihood is we would not have been in the position we're in, where we've had to object to the application. And that's really all I need to say, other than to respectfully request that the application is refused. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian. Now I go to the objectors. Can I have Charlotte? And you are representing Sarah and Celine, and that means you have 9 minutes to sum up. Charlotte, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd just like to speak to what Ian was just talking about. One of the conditions that they wanted to get rid of was that no batteries would be on the premises. So there's something about that from the past. But speaking of electric bikes, if you hire your own riders, then you're going to have to be charging batteries, and batteries are often charged inside. And we know that this is a huge now fire hazard and a huge public safety hazard. So all sorts of things have to be done to make sure that these electric bike batteries are not blowing up in the premises. So please at least keep that condition, so that the premises license holder figures out a way to get these batteries charged up somewhere else, and they're delivered quickly, and they're put on the bikes, and they're not inside, and so on. All sorts of issues there that we haven't even thought about yet. I'd just like to say that I spoke with the applicant on Monday. I emailed him. He couldn't speak with me until Wednesday, he said. And I said, well, the hearing is on Wednesday. So, I mean, we've been at so many hearings where applicants try to give the committee the impression that they want to work with residents and they've been trying to reach residents, all sorts of things. But the truth is, I spend hours writing emails to applicants. I get their mobile phone numbers because they've given it to Lorna, and I message them and I WhatsApp them and this and that. And it takes weeks and weeks. And only at the last minute does an applicant finally think, oh, well, I better talk to, a resident. So this is all, it's very disconcerting for residents, to be honest. We're making huge efforts to speak with our councillors, of course, speak with others in the council to understand how things operate. And we're trying to reach these applicants, and the applicants are not trying to reach us. I just want to make that very clear. We're still where we've been for 2 years, trying to reach applicants, and they just see us as other interested parties, and we're not a responsible authority, so they don't need to talk to us. Well, that's unfortunate. This applicant has admitted that he's mishandled many things. And also, I would say legally, this is a legal question. The person speaking tonight is speaking on behalf of a franchisee who hasn't given any written notice that this person should be speaking on his behalf, etc. So, there's a lot of legalities here that could be pulled apart pretty quickly. It's been interesting to hear from this operations manager of Chicken Cottage, but who are we really hearing from? That's who we're hearing from. Whether he really should be representing or he can legally tonight be representing, I don't know. I sort of do know, but I'm just putting it out there that, okay, all right, the person is in hospital, we understand, but then other things have to happen if that's the case. That person has to put in certain pieces of paper and make sure that everything's in order. I'm questioning whether everything's in order at this point. The other thing is, which is what Ian Inman spoke about, all of these things that Mr. Cochran talks about are things that he's willing to do, he might do, he's thinking of doing. He's had since last year, probably since a few years, he's had all sorts of opportunities to implement something. He hasn't implemented anything. He hasn't done, what has he done? He's done nothing. So there's no evidence. The question always is, if a barrister were here, Madam Chair, where is the evidence? Where is the evidence that he's doing anything? That he's implemented bikes on his own, that he's done this, done that. And if he implements bikes on his own, he told me on the phone that these riders would be cleaning well, there is no, there's just a space there, but they'd be taking trays and they'd be doing this inside, not in the sanitized area, he told me. But, riders can't be doing much at the front of this shop, except staying out of the way. I mean, I don't want them touching things. If I go in there, I don't want them touching things. Do you? These are all sort of fantasies that have been described to us, a lot of them. A lot of others have been sort of sincere responses and so on, but it doesn't all match up and make sense for us as residents. And we still are here with really what he wants is more deliveries. And this is Fulham. Fulham is residential. We need our sleep. We need fewer emissions from bicycles, motorbikes, and we just need calm. And I'm not convinced that there's a lot of calm. And I'm even questioning the sincerity of a lot that was said tonight. But giving him the benefit of the doubt, he's trying, very hard to answer questions and doing what he's supposed to do. But I think last May, June, July, August, he should have seen, whoa, we need to do a few things here. This is going to come to a head and we're going to be in front of a committee at some point. But anyway, his answer is longer hours. And I would say, on the whole, residents of Fulham say, we don't need longer hours. We don't want longer hours. And we hope that the committee has enough evidence tonight to reject this application. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlotte. Please, can I just clarify something that Mr. Cochran is listed to be here. It's Mr. Redeem that is not listed. So that's just, to mention that. Thank you. Thank you. Can I have John Scolding to speak? And he's going to have 12 minutes because he's speaking for Amanda, himself, Baha, and Elena Lewis. So he's going to speaking for 12 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I will try for everybody's sake not to take up 12 minutes.
Yeah.
I think it's obviously unfortunate and regrettable that Mr. Udin can't be here. But what I would say is that the evidence is that Mr. Udin has been central to this business in one form or another for a 10-year period and has clearly played a front-facing role. During that time, unfortunately, there have been, as we have heard, many breaches, and there are many difficult areas where this site is located. But currently, what I'm told is from a man who has 10 years of experience is that he needs more training. And currently, sadly, the conclusion is that Mr. Udin has not been part of a positive initiative or part of a positive solution, whether it's closing on time or dealing with any of the other issues. And so, however well-intentioned, whether Mr. Udin is or isn't the right man for the job, I don't think that we can place much faith, may I put it like that, in the bright future that Mr. Corcoran is painting for us in these circumstances. I was grateful that at one point Mr. Corcoran did actually acknowledge and say that he accepted that there's huge disturbance for residents. But yet he still wants to vary his application and ask for one further hour instead of the longer hours, but he still wants extended hours. It's not clear to me why the extended hours trump somehow all the concerns about late night disturbance, or trump the concerns about crime and disorder and all the other concerns that the responsible authorities have mentioned. But we've seen no evidence. Ms. Dexter's point is a good one. We've seen no evidence about all these wonderful initiatives, electric cars, own drivers, sorry, not cars, electric bikes. And I think the lack of evidence plus the late timing of the reaction and approach to this hearing, it leaves an unfortunate taste in the mouth. I'm not sure he's taken the creep issue perhaps are fully on board. I wasn't suggesting that 720 was the number of per hour deliveries from Chicken Cottage. I was simply on a very conservative basis on a simple assumption that another 9 businesses had similar hours extended. It simply took his facts and multiplied them by very simple numbers. He tells me, well, delivery only is better for the area. And I think he used the word healthier. I'm afraid we are probably at an irreconcilable point there. I'm not sure it is better. I'm not sure it is healthier. And I haven't heard an explanation as to why any of that opportunity should trump the licensing objectives and the promotion of them. The great thing is I don't have to speak for much longer. I fully agree with and very much respect and appreciate the views given by the 3 responsible authorities. My own addition to that is that I'm not sure in these circumstances, and again, this is a legal point, I don't want to take this too much further, but somehow it feels wrong if this process rewards an applicant with so much troubled history and so many difficult issues. I don't see a reason why the process can't in part try to be a deterrent for these extreme outlier cases of continuous, evidenced, regular criminal offences and breaches. And therefore, I respectfully ask the committee to consider rejecting completely this application. As part of that, I want to simply mention the possibility of a review. I see no reason why, given the current generous hours, that a review of those generous hours might, for example, set, it's been mentioned by the representative authorities, let's say 12, 18-month period where we ask the applicant to comply fully with the basic standards that we expect of all responsible operators in this area. And on that basis, I am only going to take 6 minutes, but I'm pretty much done. And I would ask everyone to reject this application. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Can I have Graham? Graham?
Hello, Chair.
Yeah. Graham, I think you have 6 minutes, or because I think you're speaking for Charlie.
Yeah, I won't be that long. Don't worry. I'm going to approach this from a slightly different point of view. I think we've heard a lot of people repeating the same thing. Mr. Cochrane was saying that in a peak day, they have 124 deliveries. They're open for 16 hours. So that's roughly 7.75 deliveries an hour. And yet for this extra hour that they want to stay open for, he said to Mr. Spalding that they would expect to have 36 deliveries in that final hour. So if you're going to employ 3 additional riders and you've got 3, maybe 4 people inside the shop, I just don't see how this is financially viable for 36 orders, unless the markup on chicken is far greater than I can possibly believe. So my first point would be, I don't see that this is a financially viable option to be open for this 1 extra hour. It doesn't make any financial sense at all. And then also I made a note that saying late night businesses always cause disturbance. Mr. Cochrane said, I would just say not if they're not open. If they're not open, they don't cause disturbance. That's the truth of it. So I would very much ask for this to be rejected on noise, nuisance, and financial viability. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I have Daisy? Daisy Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to say, really, in terms of the impact of their operations, of the community around them, as a resident and someone who is involved in the community, that everything that they seem to be bringing up at this hearing is very reactive to the fact that they're under scrutiny. They obviously haven't shown any evidence in the past to be involved or participate or be community aware or supportive in any way whatsoever. So I just feel very doubtful that their motive for these initiatives will actually be have any impact and have any weight behind them. I also have extreme concerns. You know, myself and my family have been exposed to incidents directly and indirectly from this the operations of this establishment, and I just don't feel very confident that the examples that they've given will go any way to actually address the concerns that we have and the impact and that we actually have, that we live around. And so I therefore urge everyone to reject everything that they've proposed in this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daisy. We have Miranda. I don't think she's here because she said she was going home. Miranda?
That's right, Chair. She's left the call.
She left. Okay, can I ask Simon?
Sorry, she had asked that I represent her. I won't take the time. Lorna has that information. You want her to confirm that I represent Miranda for questions?
It's fine. Okay, 3 minutes.
No, it's fine. We can leave it at that. I mean, everything's been said that she said, and it's just important that she's speaking for residents down North End Road who are constantly, dealing with late night delivery, noise, nuisance, defecation, urination, the whole 9 yards. So it's important that the committee hears that again in a sum up, and we thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Then can I have Simon Jones? Simon?
Yes, hi. Just a quick comment on the policing aspect of this. First of all, Chris, happy to see you on the call, because I've done a lot of licensing calls where the police haven't been present on these calls, and I think as your input as the police who often talk to the applicants is obviously always a central matter in these issues. It's been very bizarre to see the police have not been on these calls, so thank you for attending. And I think the council, I would encourage you to actually make this mandatory, because they're a key sort of stakeholder in all of this. Just on the police matter, I did a ride along with the police at on Halloween a couple of years ago, and it was quite a horrendous eye opener. It was a 12-hour shift I put in. And the calls we did there were alarming, but one of them was to McDonald's in Shepherd's Bush that was open 24 hours on that Saturday. And the police officer that was driving around that car that night said, quite frankly, it's an absolute utter nightmare. This McDonald's is a watering hole, and the sort of people that go there are getting into fights, crime, left, right, and center. So whether it's people going to these chicken shops or you're delivering it, I just got to question what sort of people are up at these hours. And now you mentioned emergency service workers, and I get it. If there's people that need to go to hospitals, nurses, and things like that, I get it. But hopefully they will have eaten at home, or they, again, stop at some other kind of places. But also on the health aspect of this, nobody really touched on this as I can recall. But just serving deep fried food at 2, 3, 4 in the morning is pretty unhealthy. I don't know, maybe if you're a young person, you can digest it, but that's serving up that sort of food, that's incredibly greasy stuff. And whether you go, you have a chicken meal, then go to bed, that's not really the best sort of thing to be on one's stomach. So just serving that kind of food in general, I think is not healthy. But, coming to the applicant themselves, typically when I've been on a call and the applicant doesn't show up for whatever reason, it's just, what are they hiding behind? I know there was a good reason given tonight, and if that's genuine, then great. My sympathies too. But it's typically better when the applicant shows up. But I think on this case, there's been a number of breaches of trust and of their licensing and just how they're supposed to run their shop in general. And quite frankly, it's outrageous that you're asking to go deeper into the night till 4 o'clock. Again, why don't you just go till 6 o'clock or make it 24/7? But to go that extra hour is cheeky, to say the least. It's quite outrageous, and I think we should go the other way and actually pull it back and review it. And recently there was a case with Pho, the new Vietnamese restaurant that came into Fulham Broadway, and that was a great example, and Lorna McKenna knows this, a great example of the applicant working with locals to respect all the conditions, and they actually pulled back their hours, believe it or not. They were going, I think they had it until 12:30 at night, and they actually pulled it back to 11:30. So inside that Cinderella hours, I call it. So in this case, the fact you're 3 o'clock in the morning it's not really what we want around here. There's been a resounding
time is up.
There's been a resounding no for this, and I would encourage the committee to reject this wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I have Councillor Ben Coleman to speak? 3 minutes. Councillor.
Yeah, thank you. Just everyone said everything. As just to say, the bikes idea, just a small idea. There's nothing stopping you going ahead with the bikes, having your own bikes now. I think what the clear message coming out from everybody who's been speaking is that there's a lot of ground to make up in terms of convincing the committee and the community round about that this is a serious business which cares about not being the source of ASB and about look after residents' concerns. So my suggestion would be put the bike idea in. You may then at that point win more credibility with the committee when you come back, if you come back for later opening. But I think it's a little bit premature to be asking for later opening now when nothing's improved so far. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Deputy Leader. Now, can I ask Mr. Cochran to sum up, and I'll allow you 40 minutes to sum up.
Thank you, and thank you for your time this evening. In summary, yes, we are requesting the extension for 1 hour on top of the current license. Appreciate it's deemed that the current license is generous compared to others. Just to clarify on many other points, currently 5 of the delivery riders that we are speaking to have their own bikes.
Chair.
Okay, sorry. Can you stop? And Andy Clark, I think I missed him out.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I don't
sorry.
mind going after Tom if that's easier.
No. You Andy. So you go, or you go first. You go.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thanks. Sorry. How do I lower that hand? Lower hand. Okay. The current hours are too long, so I don't regard a reduced extension as an acceptable compromise for local residents. I can confirm Councillor Stanton's point that Fresh Pizza did use chicken cottage as a precedent. I'd just like to focus on the franchise issue, though. It's important for those considering the application to remember that this is a franchise, not a centrally operated branch, which raises issues of accountability. Mr. Corcoran represents the head office franchisor, not the franchisee, and the franchisor has an arm's length relationship with the franchisee who deals with the operation of the branch. Riders wouldn't be hired by head office. The promises being made by Mr. Corcoran are not enforceable by him except through the franchise agreement. And the fact that there have been ongoing previous breaches means that this process hasn't been done. In essence, there are 2 issues which I think need to be considered. First is the operation of the franchisee branch, and the second is the level of supervision by the head office franchisor, and whether this chain of command essentially has been broken down. I don't think it's appropriate to have the 3rd busiest franchise in the country in a residential street. I feel if we're considering issues of parity, the chicken cottage branch in central Paddington is only open to 1 AM on Saturdays and midnight on other days. The chicken cottage branch at Shepherd's Bush is open later, but this is in a designated city centre location, and that has issues about the behaviour in that area as noted by Simon Jones. I find the concentration of fast food, delivery orientated fast food takeaways in North End roads at odds with the regeneration of this area, which Hammersmith and Fulham is hoping to achieve. And I'd encourage this application to be rejected in its entirety and for a review of this this premises to be conducted with a view to reducing the hours. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. I'm sorry I missed you for the trip.
No problem.
I'm really
Thanks.
sorry. Okay, now can we go back to Tom Cochran? I'll still allow you 40 minutes, so you speak.
No problem. Hopefully, I don't anticipate to take much longer of everyone's time. As stated earlier, there is our request to extend the hours by 1. As just a few points here. Crime statistics we are very broadly referred to when we talk about in-store trading, when we talk about, as it's been put before, antisocial behaviour, and people coming into the property. Our request is that the property will be closed to the general public and only open to employees, albeit delivery riders as well. And that is our main focus of that request. I appreciate that the initial request wasn't clearly stated to state that. This has happened and transpired along the way from talking to various parties as to what is reasonable and what isn't. And in particular, a project that we are currently looking at as a business in Chicken Cottage is the use of electric bikes around London and more also Manchester as well. Previously, we've had a license here and there as well with successful results and still performing quite well with the use of electric bikes and managing the service ourselves. So that is one thing that I will note on that. My details were shared on the 29th of December. That was by working with the licence authority. So, you know, I appreciate Miss Dexter reaching out on Monday. I unfortunately couldn't immediately get back to Miss Dexter, but I did move meetings. I appreciate the time that she gave on Monday for us to have that conversation. I, you know, have spoke with other residents as well along the way, and appreciate that it's not been Mr. Uddin who's dealt with that, and partly because we as franchisors stepped in when the breaches started to occur, and we see that it's a serious breach, and it's actually a breach of the franchise agreement to act in any way that is unlawfully. So we did step in, and that is why I am doing the bulk of the talking throughout this whole period, whether it's with residents over the phone or whether it's been with the council. I also note that Domino's operate a similar model where riders are also their secondary duty inside their employment is as a pot washer in the back of the kitchen. It is reasonable to ask the riders to undertake such activities. It's been successful in other companies, and we would see that it's going to be successful if we was to go ahead with it. And in particular, when we talk about keeping the area clean outside for the residents, it would be great to have those same riders picking up litter from the street outside. So I appreciate the comments there for Ms. Dexter on behalf of the local community in particular. Moving on to other comments, you know, there is a point where Mr. Uddin is trained. Yes, there is no doubt he's trained to look after a business, but there is also a point of legal compliance as well. I'm sorry, if I can just pause for 1 second, Matt, I just need to plug my laptop in. Sorry, if I may. My apologies. So the main focus for us as franchisor with Mr. Uddin is to focus on the legal compliance aspect, which very honestly, for transparency for everybody here today, is something that as a business we are taking much more seriously and taking more of a note of from not only this issue but others as well that we've faced. Chicken Cottage has been around now for 30 years. Inside its history, it's gone through different stages of management, through what I would say is poor management, and over the last couple of years, we've made massive improvements, including a restructuring. And that includes looking at our model as well. And from recent hearings in the Westminster Council, we decided to review our electric bike structure and the request to franchisees to operate more of a sustainable and a healthier model as well. And that is why we're here today discussing the use of electric bikes. It's not just on the back of this hearing, and to almost tick a box and get this over the line, it is a business-wide review and initiative as well, which we see that is something that we can then look to promote, and hopefully other businesses will follow as well. It's also a point that, you know, our product isn't just greasy fried chicken. There is also grilled chicken as well. It would be great for that to be showcased to the residents as well. And more importantly, this isn't just, you know, people just before they go to bed. As I said, 21% of our customers inside those hours are public sector workers who are working. There's also many private sector workers, bin men who also stop by, and other businesses as well, people who are working unsociable hours who just want to have something to eat. It's, you know, other comments of they go to a service station. Service stations don't offer hot food for people who are working late at night, and for anyone who's done that, as I have myself, it's great just to have something hot to eat, something that you're familiar with and something that you actually appreciate, rather than just a sandwich that is almost expired from a service station. And I agree with other comments in terms of how do we as a franchisor enforce these behaviours with our franchisees. Yes, we have a franchise agreement, and yes, it's been reviewed. We constantly review our processes, as any business does, and this is one of them in terms of legal compliance and making sure that our franchisees act in a responsible way with the local community. And like I said earlier, Love Where You Live events are also high on our agenda, which would be very good to actually start in the local authority, local district of Hammersmith and Fulham. It's very much of the franchisees' ambition to work with the local authority, to work with the police, and also mine as well. Personally, I believe there's a lot of learnings that can be gathered from this. I did speak with PC Cardwell. He said, you know, there is going to be a lot of challenges on the back of this inside this hearing. Would you still want to go ahead with it? And I believe yes, because the experience alone and just understanding the residents is quite important for us as a business as well. Quite often we only hear from residents when it's something negative, or when we're inside these hearings. We never hear from residents throughout the year. We never hear from anyone who says, do you know what, just turning up at the property and saying, I've noticed you've got a lot of litter, you know, your noise is really starting to bother me. Only when it's raised to the council as a complaint does it actually come to us. It would be great to have a working relationship with the local community groups in particular, and the residents associations, and also the councillors. I believe that is massively important to work both ways. And as I say, the only time we hear from anyone is either in these hearings when all the negative comments come out, or in such way where it's a complaint raised to the council. I appreciate there's been breaches, and we have worked on those, and, you know, since would like to display that there aren't any further in that way as well. And we welcome any recommendations, whether it's to install a new extraction system, which we've already started to scope out, or whether it's to promote any other actions within the wider community and council district. So with that, I would just summarise that, you know, the extension for 1 hour is delivery only. We would hope that it doesn't promote any crime, which would hopefully ease the comments from PC Cardwell. And the noise aspect, yes, we would welcome any recommendations and any support from the noise and nuisance team as possible. We would look to, like I say, recruit our own riders and make sure that they are operating in a responsible way. They would have uniform, and they would be branded with Chicken Cottage, and not just riders who are untrained and unapologetic to the local residents as well. So that is pretty much everything from me. I appreciate everyone's time and comments along the way. It's been great to hear from everyone, and my final comments from Mr. Uddin, our franchisee, so he does sincerely apologise for not being able to make it today. He is still in the hospital as we speak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cochran. Give our regards to him. Now, the committee will now retire to take its decision in a separate room. You are welcome to remain in the meeting to hear the committee's decision. However, this might take some time. If you don't want to wait, a summary decision will be published on Council's website tomorrow morning. Can I ask members to turn off their video and mute their microphone and join the team in the committee room? Thank you. I cannot see myself. Okay, is everybody in?
Yeah.
Can you see me?
No, Chair, do you still have Teams open? Because it might still have the focus on the camera.
Oh. Okay.
There you go.
Thank you. Is everybody back? Yeah. Okay.
I can't show my video, Charlotte Dexter, but
okay, that's
right. I can hear.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
It's on your side, just so you know. I'm getting notes that it's your side that is stopping seeing the videos.
Okay. Okay. Chicken Cottage, 82 North End Road, London, West 14, 9ES, the premises. The committee has considered an application for the variation of a premises license to vary the hours for late refreshment and add non-standard timings, to remove 34 conditions from the existing license and to replace the premises plan under the Licensing Act 2003. The application, in summary, the committee has decided, after taking into account all the individual circumstances of this case and the promotion of 4 licensing objectives: 1, to refuse to vary the licensable hours for the provision of late night refreshment; 2, not to approve the new premises plan; the applicant to submit an amended plan as a minor variation application; 3, to agree to remove the following conditions from the existing license: 9, 12 to 19 inclusive, 22, 25 to 27 inclusive, 29 to 34 inclusive, and 41. To impose the condition proposed by the applicant in operating schedule as amended by committee, to add a condition to the licensing regarding staff being trained in Licensing Act and conditions of the premises license. A copy of this committee's full decision, including its reasons and full text of conditions added to the existing license, will be sent to the parties forthwith. If applicant is unhappy with the decision, they are entitled to appeal to the magistrate court within 21 days of notification. That ends today's licensing, and thank you everyone for coming.